Gaming news today is all about trying to have fun and fresh perspectives on a news cycle that's been a consistent bummer lately. I've prepared a lineup of reactions and discussions and deep dives for you that are certainly pertinent to what is going on in the gaming news. And listen, if you're scrolling YouTube, if you're scrolling social media over the last few days, you've seen doom, you've seen gloom, you've seen negativity about the state of gaming. But today I wanted to sort of push against the doom posting as best as we can, because these things are certainly happening. We're here because we like video games. We like gaming as art. Honestly, the business behind gaming is massive, and it's pretty fascinating. So what we're going to be doing today is trying to sort of break down different perspectives that have been going on. That's an opportunity for me to kind of interact with what others are saying in these spaces, and also just talk about where the industry seems to be headed. So to kick things off, I will be reacting to Jason Schreier's latest deep dive into the Xbox and Bethesda landscape. There's been a ton of corporate restructuring, but don't want to just throw our hands up and continue to be frustrated, because I am frustrated by some of it. A lot of talent at these studios has been let go. id Software, Obsidian, and others are apparently going to be hit. But what happens next for the devs? Schreier has some insight into how things are still not done. It's actually worse behind the scenes. It doesn't just actually pertain to the first party studios at Xbox. Now, after that, I've got a shorter piece to look at. I made a video about this last night. We'll be reacting to former Rockstar Games producer John Ricchio. He did an interview with KIWI TALKZ. KIWI TALKZ actually reached out to me and said, hey, I appreciated the coverage. That was a good video. He left a comment on the video, and trying to work out a time to even have him come on and speak to him just about what he's learned from all of the interviews he's done. So be sure to check him out on YouTube. He does lots of interviews with people in the industry and has lots of contacts. And he interviewed John Ricchio, the guy who worked on GTA 5, Red Dead, Max Payne 3, and these are very well-known games. I want to kind of look behind the curtain here, the scale of GTA 6 and the production, and why PC will be not coming at launch. And I think this is some perspective that I think is appreciative. I think it's helpful. Now, finally, we will be checking out a video from one of the original Xbox founders, Laura Fryer. You guys know how much I like Laura. I like her content. I think she's great in this space. She recently spoke about the Rock Band warning, why game preservation and ownership matter. This, I think, hopefully is a great look into what's going on right now. There's a debate about a digital future, and rather than just go back and forth like we've done, I wanted to really kind of talk about, like, listen, I get that we're passionate about physical media, I get that we're passionate about games, but what can we do thinking about our history within gaming and kind of try to protect it and preserve it, while also sort of looking at the state of things now and how we had kind of warnings early on. Now, it would be fun if this is something we could do on a regular basis. So if you like this, you're watching it later, try to be here for the live environment. We're trying to sort of get away from just the daily doom and gloom, but this doesn't work without support. It just doesn't. And I'm going to be really frank and honest with you guys. The support's just never really moved. It's largely supported by a handful of people who gift lots and lots of members. Live streamers in my particular situation who kind of had to start over, had to kind of shift and evolve on the fly. I only am able to do this because of fan funding. And if that doesn't go in the right direction, then things like this just simply can't last. This is something that many people with Patreons and live streams tend to tell you, and it's not begging, it's just giving you the reality. If you like this program, if you like this show, you listen to it as a podcast, whether it's live or you listen to it later, that membership, that $5 a month, it does go a long way. I think many people just shrug and say, well, I don't need it, I don't need the extra content. And that's totally fine. I get that. Times are also very, very tough. But the reality is, that's the only way that this works. And there's other means, there's other ways, there's other things I could obviously do if that doesn't work out. And I would love to continue doing this show with you guys. But we need that direct viewer support to start to shift away from just a couple of people doing big gifts and more people just grabbing that $5 membership. If you can't, understandable. The gifting still happens here. I myself gift on a regular basis. Hopefully we can get you snagged by one of those memberships and you can get into our Discords. So I would like to know from you if there is a game on your shelf right now that you would never get rid of. Is there one that you simply must keep? Is this a concern that you have about, perpetuating some type of ownership or preservation in general of games? For me, the game that I can always sort of go back to is one like Returnal or like Ori and the Blind Forest, and I would hate to never be able to share that with, my kids when they're old enough to kind of maybe tackle some of the more challenging games, or, even my grandchildren, just being able to sort of share that history with them. That was something that my dad was able to do. He was able to get out the Coleco and say, hey, these are the games that that I played. And when he took me to the arcade and showed me Punch-Out for the first time, he was actually really good at Punch-Out. That is something that I sort of treasure as a memory, and I would love to be able to do that in the future. So we'll be looking at some videos today about that. One of those videos being the one from Laura Fryer. So if you're here right now or you're watching later, make sure and hit like, make sure and hit subscribe. That way we can get this video in front of more people. And thank you to the people that are already kind of starting things. Joker Quinn, Han shot first, and so did you. Thank you so much, sir, for gifting a member. And then Alex comes in and resubscribes 16 months. That's a lot of months on Purple. And says, can't gift lately, but I still got this. I totally understand. Listen, I've warned people over and over again, and I don't know how else to say it. It's like we can't rely on a couple of people to go crazy every week. That is not how this continues. This only continues if we can sort of garner, a group of people that just continue to support on their own, so then we don't need those big gifts. It's odd, but I still play Secret of Mana and Metal Marines on the SNES. Good to see you, Captain Steve. Punch-Out's goated. The original in the arcade is pretty tough, too. It's not an easy game at all. So if you guys are here in the live, try to get us those first 100 likes. That does help out the video. Incredible Black says, all the people with agreement, and if you have different opinions, you'll be dismissed and shamed. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Fill the space of old gaming magazines I used to purchase worth backing. What are you guys talking about? Magazines? Like old gaming magazines? I saw some of you guys in chat debating whether or not you like the original, like Assassin's Creed Black Flag or Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resync, like which is your preference? Shadow Warriors, aka Ninja Gaiden on the NES. That would be one that you would want to make sure is preserved. I wish you could buy like original NES and Super Nintendo games. Like I feel like a lot of those games are like sitting in like that weird Nintendo online thing. I do not like that they do that. I prefer to just go and buy them. Did you see the Bethesda protest? I did not see that Bethesda is protesting. No. Punch-Out is the one old game that I still go back to and play and still do from time to time. SOCOM says, A. Willis, Resynced is 100% better than the original for me. OG for no Resynced. Oh, you prefer the OG. Yeah, I need to finish Doom the Dark Ages DLC. My afternoons keep getting dissolved like right in front of me. Like I made that video yesterday about the GTA 6 thing, which for whatever reason, I don't know if the GTA 6 uploads, you guys don't like them. It literally tells me, it's like your subscribers are not watching this. And I'm like, we don't do a ton of GTA 6. I don't feel like I'm beating us over the head with it, but I'm always kind of surprised by that. I'm like, oh, you guys don't like GTA 6? Okay. Like, it's just weird to me. It's like the biggest game coming out this year. And I thought the insight on it coming to PC later was important. I was like, well, this is actually really insightful to hear from a guy who worked at Rockstar. I thought it was interesting. Unmute Discord, already did. Thank you so much, John, for $5 super chat. Says, I can and can't wait for my daughter to turn 8 to 10 years old so she can play the Sly Cooper games like I did as a kid. That's not true. Wired Rope with a 10 bomb. Thank you very, very much. No, it literally says the last 2 times I've done GTA 6 videos, it says your subscribers are watching this in like lower numbers or something. It'll like let you know if your sub base likes a topic. YouTube's trying to help you, right? They're trying to say, hey, good job, your subs liked this one. The 2 times I've done a GTA 6 upload, it's like people are like, nah, I don't want to watch that. I'm like, all right. Maybe it is fatigue, Sneaky Wolf. People are just like, I'm sick of hearing leaks. I didn't feel like this was a leak. This was a homie doing an interview. I thought it was interesting. I'm not saying everybody had to think it was interesting. I just find it to be like, oh, okay, you guys don't like uploads about GTA 6. When we do live streams about it, everybody's here and jawing and excited. Maybe it's more because they're hopeful to get like gameplay or a trailer. A. Willis, thank you for so much for jumping back in as a member. I thought the video had a lot of good info that I did not know before. That's what I mean. I thought it was very interesting that this guy was just speaking frankly. He was like, yeah, I mean, this is not because we're anti-PC, and it's not a double-dipping thing. And KIWI, not even in the interview, KIWI got on Twitter and was like, this is not at all what people think it is. He's like, I've spoken to tons of, Rockstar employees, and they've always indicated this was an efficiency move, and it's like when the project gets bigger and bigger and bigger, I just don't think people understand like the degree to which, like, oh yeah, making a game for PC is not easy if you're making a game at all. Like making a game for multiple platforms, it's not that PC isn't particularly challenging. It's that if you're making a game for lots of platforms, It causes complexity. We've heard this from so many people. And if the project is huge, then yeah, that's going to make it worse, I would imagine. That it's going to take even longer to bring it to the market. Not the video I watched. Is it good news just in general? All over YouTube, countless videos, info on GTA 6. Yeah, that's probably what it is. YouTube's just trying to help its creators. So it just tries to let us know, like, hey, your people really liked this video. They showed a lack of interest in this video. So they're trying to help you understand, like, what people like and what they don't like. And 2 times in a row, I thought the GTA 6 price one, I was like, yeah, that's fine. People are tired of hearing about the price. They're tired of hearing about $100 games or whatever. I thought yesterday was super interesting. It's like, this is something we've consistently heard and thought and perpetuated, this idea that like, oh no, yeah, they totally do it so people double dip. And this guy's saying, no, I've spoken to a ton of Rockstar devs, past, present, and they're all like, no, that's not why we do it. That's not it at all. How many months? We don't know how many months GTA 6 has been delayed or whatever. Now, I've made the observation that if you listen to Strauss Zelnick talk about the importance of PC, like the way he kind of speaks about it, I get the impression it's going to be a quicker turnaround. I think it's going to be summer of next year. Like in the middle of next year, I think they're going to try to get it ready for PC. If not, holiday. They'll make you wait exactly 1 year. I don't think they're going to make you wait much longer than that. I just don't. That's been my own personal opinion on it. Broodwitch, thank you so much for the support on Purple. Thank you so much for renewing for 30 months. I appreciate it. It's been delayed. Well, yeah, it's a delayed, it's a staggered PC delay. I'm just using the smallest words I can because we have to put a lot of topics in the title. Yeah, it's a delay. It's not coming at launch. Like, we don't know and have never heard what the release date is. The general topic is, why is it not coming day and date? Why is it a staggered or delayed release? Get ready for cheaters and modders on PC and GTA 6 online. I'm getting GTA 6 on PS5 and PC. It's going to look gorgeous. One of the things I kept telling people in the comment section of the video last night, I was like, you can wait, right? Like, you can wait. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy it like right when it comes out. You're well within your right to wait. That was the thing I didn't understand. It was like, they're doing this so we have to double dip. It's like, you don't have to double dip. If you for sure know you're going to play it on PC, then just wait. There's so many games coming out. You can and listen, we know there's going to be updates and patches and bugs and other things that they might have to smooth over. And it's like, dude, I don't know. You can just wait and not buy it. No one's forcing you to buy it twice. For me, I'm just ready for GTA to be out and just it's the never-ending narrative. I mean, it's going to come out and it's going to take over the news cycle then too. It's not like it's going to come out and then we'll forget about it. So yeah, waiting is not. Of all the times to wait, now is one of the easiest times to wait. Because you literally can play 25 other games easily before playing GTA 6. The role-playing aspect is only big on PC because of the private servers. Well, that's what I told the one guy, Seawolf. I was like, I remember, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, I remember hearing from a lot of PC guys that, like, they were happy to wait for PlayStation games to come to PC. That PlayStation didn't have any exclusives anymore, and they could wait 1 to 2 to sometimes 3 years for games to port to PC. And they said, yeah, we'll just wait. I'm not going to buy a PlayStation. And it's like, oh, okay. I thought y'all were super patient over there, you know? I don't know. That was the impression I got, was that y'all were willing to wait for stuff. I mean, that's what we heard for at least the last 2 years, that PlayStation had no exclusives anymore, and you would just wait an undetermined amount of time for PlayStation ports. 12 months, 18 months, 24, sometimes 36 months later it would show up. So just apply that same mantra this time. Just wait. Nobody's making you buy GTA 6. I just was telling the guys in the comments, like, you don't have to buy it, and you're not entitled to it. It isn't that big of a deal. They will play it on their monster rig, right? I don't get it at all. People don't want to hear about GTA 6 until they get gameplay. You got us with your $100 game. Now show me what you got. It ain't out for another 4 months. Yeah, but generally speaking, in anticipation of games coming out, people take an interest in said games, so I'm not really sure. On top of that, they nerfed GTA Online. The community's not liking this. I've seen tweets about that, about the grind. People are like, I don't want... Why are you making this more grindy or whatever? FOMO gets these people every time. Yeah, I mean, that's what's always kind of a bit of a self-report, is like, they're really angry that the company's doing it, and I'm like, yeah, but I mean, all you got to do is just, it's not buy it, that's all you got to do. It's pretty easy. If I was planning on playing games on my PC, or like there are games coming to Switch, and we know they're coming late as well, right? It's like, okay, well, if I was doing that and waiting for games to come to the Switch, I wouldn't be like, oh, you're trying to get me to buy it twice. Because there are tons of games that's happening with. I mean, that's kind of becoming more of the norm for the Nintendo Switch 2, is that, the games aren't coming at release. They're coming later. So, GTA 6 fatigue already? Yeah, I guess. Even if the game is just GTA 5 but updated graphics on a new map and scores as low as the worst GTA, it's definitely worth 80 to 100. I mean, I think the 80 to 100 discussion's more about what you plan on doing with it. Like, are you going to play it for thousands of hours? Are you going to... you know what I mean? Like... thoughts on Nintendo's acquisition of a portion of the PC market? Huh? Is optimization in mouse mode enough? Provided Switch 2 has untapped power? I don't even know how to respond to that. Are you I feel like you're goofing around. You can't be serious. You think that Nintendo can... I don't feel like that's a serious question. I feel like you're being a goof. That you can't be serious. So the main thing, I think, with the GTA 6 fatigue is, I think there are people that aren't going to play it, right? And there are people that are going to say, hey, we've heard enough. We've heard enough to make a purchase or not make a purchase. But then there's the people that are like, well, I've made the purchase and I want gameplay. You know what I mean? He must be talking about mouse PI. No, I mean the there's mouse function on the Switch too. I truly don't know what he's talking about. Like, I don't. It sounds like he's goofing. Like, provided that the Switch 2 has untapped power. I'm not sure what he means. I don't think there's untapped power in the Switch 2. I think the people largely know what's there. I mean, again, we're seeing games come late to it. So, I want to see Horde so bad on Gears. That's where I'm going to be until Christmas. Yo, it's good, Grady. I don't care about single player. I want the GTA Online. That's another question mark, is when is that even going to come out, you know? Is it going to come out? The rumor was like a month later. I don't think they're going to make you wait a super long time, but it's likely going to be a pretty significant endeavor to even bring it, to turn those servers on and get everybody in. So make sure you guys are hitting the like button on YouTube. Try to get us to 200 likes. Appreciate it very much. I'm not paying 100 for a campaign. I'm gonna wait for online. Well, let's pull up the first video. Let's take a look here at the first thing we're gonna be reacting to. I didn't get a chance to watch any of these ahead of time. I actually don't like to watch them ahead of time, because I prefer to have a raw reaction. And if you guys are unaware, Jason Schreier has started a YouTube channel, and he has been just basically talking about all the stuff that's been going on. So let's take a listen. I'm going to take the music down just one notch. It'll still be very, very light and in the background, but way lower than typical. And I want to see what he has to say here. I don't know why I can't hear it. I don't know why this happens. Like, I feel like Windows just changes your audio devices. Yeah, I've got it set to the right thing. I don't know why this happens. Maybe OBS changed it. It usually does. No, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's a microphone. There we go.
Today I want to talk about an aspect of the Xbox Bloodbath that has not really been discussed. I know you might be sick of the kind of the grim news that is circulating in the games industry, some of which I've covered on this YouTube channel, but that's unfortunately the times that we're in. And if you're sick of bad news, don't worry. On Friday, I will have a much better story, a cooler, more interesting, positive story. But today we're going to get into an interesting negative story. So as you undoubtedly have seen by now, last week, Xbox had their much expected bloodbath, where they announced that they were divesting 5 studios, canceling some projects, laying off or cutting 3,200 jobs, 1,600 last Monday, and then 1,600 to come. That second number includes the studio divestments, but it also includes around 1,200, 1,250 people who will just be laid off over the next year and have no idea when or who or how that will actually happen. Talked about that in a video last week and how cruel that has been for those people. But there's another side to this, another side that people haven't really talked about, maybe don't even know about. So let me tell you a story. Last July, it's now become an annual tradition for Xbox to have mass layoffs every single first week of July to coincide with the end of Microsoft's fiscal year. So last July 2025, they did the same thing. They laid off a bunch of people as they tried to make their budget for the coming fiscal year. And one of the things they did at that point was they canceled a game called Perfect Dark that had been in development at a studio that they built in, I believe, 2018 called The Initiative. And so this game, Perfect Dark, it was in development for a very long time, had some documented struggles and their stories out there about some of the things that they had gone through. That game actually wound up going into partnership, co-development between the Initiative and a company called Crystal Dynamics, that is best known as the makers of Tomb Raider. They made Marvel's Avengers, that Avengers Online.
Thank you, Lone Wolf, for 60 months. Guys, I wanted to hear his thoughts on this because some people were putting this video in the Discord yesterday just about, like, what in the world's going on. Obviously, we know there's lots of layoffs coming, but he's talking about, like, another sort of downstream effect of this. It's not going to be affecting the first-party Xbox game studios directly, but other studios as well.
Live service game and many others. It's a long-running San Francisco studio. And so obviously those two studios were impacted when Perfect Dark was canceled. I reported on Bloomberg in the months afterwards. The company Take-Two and their subsidiary 2K Games, which is the makers of like BioShock and Borderlands, they actually tried to buy Perfect Dark and save the studios involved, save the teams involved. But that fell through due to some negotiation hiccups over the IP and long-term ownership and Game Pass and all that jazz. So what happened was, so Crystal Dynamics had to lay people off as a result of that. The Initiative, which was the main studio, they closed, and so they had to lay people off because of that. But what people don't know is that there were other studios working on that game too. I can't name them all because I haven't confirmed with 100% certainty every single one. But for example, Eidos Montreal, which was is a sister studio to Crystal Dynamics, also had some people working on Perfect Dark. And there are others out there too, other kind of work for hire studios that were working on that game. And as a result, they also had to lay people off. But it's those people were in an even worse situation than the people who were at the Initiative, because those people who worked at those co-dev studios couldn't even say that they were working on Perfect Dark. They couldn't put it on their portfolio. They couldn't explain why they were suddenly laid off. The studios involved, in some cases, put up LinkedIn postings saying, hey, sorry, we had to cut 40 staff because of such and such reasons, because of market realities or a canceled project or whatever. But they could not say it was Perfect Dark because of NDAs they've signed and like these complicated contracts where oftentimes these co-development partners, these studios that work alongside these other studios on games, can't actually say that they're working on the games until much later on, until the game ships. So those guys also got impacted. And so they're kind of the invisible cost, the hidden cost of those job cuts and cancellations are the co-dev studios that are working with these studios. Co-development has always, outsourcing has always been part of, or not always, but has been part of the game development industry for a long time, the last 2 decades or so. There's been outsourcing in some capacity. In recent years, in the more modern era, we've seen that kind of grow to encompass what is now called co-dev, where you don't just have like a studio in the Philippines that you're sending like concept art to and having them model assets or whatever. Instead, you are actually having these studios, you are bringing them in to make substantial portions of the game. Sometimes it might be you have a studio come in to do...
Yeah, Jack Garland says, I can't imagine spending all this time working on something you can't even acknowledge. I mean, the dilemma would be that, like, they've got to protect your projects and your property. This guy says no one cares what Jason has to say. He has 126,000 subscribers. This video has 132,000 views, and it's a day old. His channel's probably not even a month old, so I think, find somewhere else to hang out.
I don't know, your UI work. Sometimes it might be that they're coming in to do a level or a chunk of the game, a certain portion of the game, and it's done through supervision with the main studio. For example, Obsidian Entertainment, they made Grounded, and then for the sequel, Grounded 2, instead of making it internally, they made it in co-development with Eidos Montreal, and Eidos Montreal made the bulk of that game. The majority of the people who worked on the game were at Eidos Montreal, and there was a team of maybe, 4 or 5, something like that, people at Obsidian who supervised and just kind of monitored.
This is going to become more common too, I would think, too, with the rising cost of development. Like, a lot of us were looking at, Bungie and the situation there, and it was like, I kept saying, if you could figure out a way to make Destiny 3 and support Destiny 3 cheaper, it's a game that's deserving of creation. It's a game that's deserving of, like, it's a game that's worthy of coming out. But the issue is the production cost. The issue is, how do you support the game ongoing? Like, once you pay for it, that's fine, but supporting the game ongoing would be, a significant challenge.
For the project, and we're reviewing milestones and going over everything and just kind of offering their creative guidance. That's not usually what happens. Usually what happens is you have kind of a lead studio, and then they are working with a bunch of other studios on chunks of it, rather than co-dev handling the majority of the development. But still, it's a very common process. Obsidian is a really good example, because that is a studio that that has maybe, I don't know, 300 staff, or at least they did before this current layoff, maybe a shade less than 300. And they were working on something like 6 different projects, which you can't do with that kind of staff unless you are heavily relying on code development, which is what they were doing. So going back to Obsidian, when Obsidian canceled 3 projects that they were working on, and instead they're, as I reported last week on Bloomberg, I'll throw the link in the show notes, they kicked off development on a new Fallout game, or very, very early development on a new Fallout game. Anything could change on that. Who knows what it's going to be? Is it going to be a spinoff? Is it going to be Fallout 5? Like, what is that going to look like? All things are in the air right now. This was a very, very recent decision. But anyway, they canceled a few games, including a sequel to Avowed, which, as I mentioned last week, they still have a few people working on, like, through the next milestone or so, as they are waiting for the Fallout project to be ready and other things to be ready. But anyway, they canceled a few games, and those games, or at least one of them, maybe multiple of them, I'm not 100% sure, but those games were also in development with co-dev partners. And so those co-dev partners are now in a position where they're getting their game canceled, they're losing money, they can't afford to keep people employed, they have to cut jobs, they have to this canceled project, and then the people who they are cutting can't actually say what they were working on. So it's a situation where you have these kind of.
I wonder what sort of cascade effect's going to come from this. Like, are they going to lay these people off and shrink his studios, maybe even, face shutting down his studios? And are there going to be, like, less co-dev studios out there? Like, depending upon how many people, how many studios, how many companies even rely on them, are we going to turn around and be like, oh man, the talent loss in the industry hasn't even truly been felt yet? Like, are we, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that the next sort of wave of discovery that we find out like 12 months from now or something, that XX number of support studios are basically just gone, like co-dev studios that come in and do this type of work? I mean, I wonder how many of them aren't even going to survive this. That's the question I have for Jason. I don't know if he speaks to that.
Kind of ripple effects from this game getting canceled that people don't even think about it. And so that number, 3,200, that is, I guess, technically correct in terms of like the full-time jobs within the Xbox organization that are getting canceled, but it's also having all of these ripple effects all across the world as all these co-development studios are impacted by these game cancellations. And there are probably countless others that just have not been able to be talked about. And it's really tough. I think just worth thinking for a second. If you are an artist or a game designer in the video game industry and you lose your job, first of all, you're entering a really tough market, largely because of the contraction that the video game industry has gone through over the last 3 years. I've heard stories from people telling me that it's taken them months, if not years, to find new work in the games industry. So you're entering a really tough market, but also you do not have things to show on your portfolio, because you can't just be like, hey, I worked on concept art from this game that it was never actually announced and was canceled, and also we never actually said at our studio, our co-dev studio, that we were working on this game, so I can't talk about it, sorry. so like
this homie's just raw dogging YouTube. I really appreciate it. He's like, I'm just gonna cough right on the mic, no edits. I love it. I like, as somebody who likes to do one take uploads, I really appreciate that. The fact that people can't put it on their resume, or like in the future even remotely talk about like what they worked on and stuff, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, I get it. Like, I understand the legal principle behind it. Did the Defense Force show up? No, I'm just not interested in hearing from non-subs and non-members today. I'm just not in the mood for it. They show up with like super new accounts and just say silly stuff. I'm kind of over it. It's just an incessant problem. You want to talk in chat? Become a member at this point. So the fact that there's no means by which these people can like put something on a resume, right? Like I don't know. I understand the legal reasons. Like, if you're working on a project and you need to keep the project quiet, or you need to keep the project like under NDA or whatever, I understand. I totally do. But it's like, how on earth is anybody supposed to be like, hey, for the last 6 months, for the last 12 months or whatever, I've been working on such and such, and then there's no opportunity for them to talk about it. Now, you would think they could say, I worked on an unnamed project for this many months, and here's what I worked on. I worked on, animation systems, or, yeah, you could say I worked on games, affected by layoffs or cancellation, but here's the work that I did. I was there for 18 months. I was there for 14 months. You would think that there would be some way for them to talk about the work that they did, but this has been a perpetual problem. I mean, I remember way back learning about this. Like, people aren't even allowed to put it on their resume, and I'm like, well, couldn't you go generic? Couldn't you say that, you were working on world building for some open world game that, didn't see the light of day? Or is that considered like bad form or something? Like, you think that, like, oh, but because the game's canceled, that's going to reflect poorly on me or something? I just don't know.
You are really, like, stuck in a really hard place. Excuse me.
My homie just...
One take Schreier, not cutting that out. You are really stuck in a tough place because you have to hit this job market without being able to show your portfolio in as thorough a way as you might have been able to if you were working on something that had been announced, or something that was kind of more publicly high profile, or something that had been released. This has been a problem for ages, that people, there are all sorts of stories I've heard over the years of people who, like, their entire resume was canceled projects and they didn't have a single game that shipped that they could actually show to people. But at least if something is canceled and it's been publicly announced and you can say you worked on it, you can put it on your resume.
I guess that makes sense, that a lot of these people don't just want to say... This isn't like saying, hey, on your resume, like, I was a sales rep for 18 months, where, like, they're going to say, can you show us your sales reports or something? In this regard, if you're like, yeah, I worked on open world concepts for an open world game for 18 months, they're going to be like, well, can you show us your portfolio? We would like to see those things, right? I would say that is probably a difference within this industry. Like, maybe I'm speaking a little ignorantly here and being like, well, why wouldn't you just put on your resume anyway? Well, the artist is probably going to fire back and be like, bro, that doesn't mean anything. They're going to want to see my work. They're going to want to see the 3D animated models, or the worlds, or the whatever. And all of that's tucked away, locked away in a canceled game, protected by copyright or NDA. Like, I can't show you my work. I can't show you a portfolio. Or a body of work. So I get that being a problem. If you guys are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button. If you're watching on Purple or YouTube, you want to talk in the chat, just become a member, and you'll be able to do that.
Resume and on your portfolio. Granted, a little bit of a caveat here is that oftentimes, if you are applying to a job and you actually get to the next step and you can talk to an interviewer one-on-one, you can explain to them under kind of cover of friend DA or whatever. You can be like, look, I worked on this thing, let me show you this, but you can't share it anywhere else. But to get in the door in the first place, you need your portfolio and your
right, you need it to even get them to probably want to talk to you. And then secondly, that's expecting the fact that you even have some of those things saved, like in a portfolio. Like, some of these places are going to have everything locked down, and you're not going to get out of the building with like a drive or something, or like, your own personal stuff. They're not going to want that stuff leaving the premises. So, like, they might not even have a portfolio to show in an environment where you're like, obviously this can't be seen by the public, but I was in fact working on, Perfect Dark or whatever.
Resume, and to not be able to show that to potential HR recruiters and gatekeepers, that puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. That really sucks. And so there's also this level of uncertainty among code dev partners around the world. For example,
thank you, 8-Bit Dad, for jumping back in for 40 months. I appreciate it.
And every studio pretty much is using codev in some way or another these days. Like, these days, most game development studios are relying on external partners for something or another. If you are a codev partner who is working with, I don't know, Double Fine or Compulsion or Ninja Theory or Undead Labs or Arcane, you are now in this state of uncertainty. Maybe you think your game is still happening, but you don't know what it's going to look like. Maybe your game just got canceled and you're in the same position as all those other people I mentioned. or who knows, like you just don't know what the future is going to look like, and you're not getting headlines, and you're not getting kind of this kind of big public exposure to the work you're doing, because you by nature are just flying under the radar. You are trying not to get noticed. So the co-dev is a huge part of this, and it's one of the reasons that 3,200 number is actually way bigger than 3,200. But there's another thing too.
I'd love an estimate from him, like 3,200 is huge, like it's enormous. The biggest one they did was 2,500. So 3,200 is the biggest amount of layoffs that they've ever done. So they did the 2,500, and obviously people would say, "Oh, this is only 1,600. It's not the biggest," because they're breaking it into two parts or what have you. It's like, well, no, this is 3,200 layoffs. Part of me feels like they're breaking it into two parts again to confuse the public, but also because I don't think they want people to be able to say it's the biggest, right? 3,200 is a town. Yeah, it's an obscene amount, and it is. This is the largest. It's larger than the 2,500. So get him on the show. There's no way I'll ever get Schreier to come on the show. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Try to get us to 200 likes if you're watching on YouTube.
Another thing that I mentioned briefly in last week's video and my story on Bloomberg last week about the kind of the cruelty and the cruelest part of Xbox's layoffs, but haven't super elaborated on. So I want to get into it a little bit more right now.
Anthony says, "It may suck, but at the same time you decide to do this kind of work. You did agree to work there knowing it can be canceled, and you did sign the NDA." No one's disputing that. Like, no one's saying that these people didn't know this is the kind of work that they're signing up for. What we're talking about is all the downstream effects that come from this level of layoff. Like, the ramifications of this are far-reaching. Because think about the compounding effect of what we're talking about. You lay all these people off, you cancel projects, it affects co-development studios that aren't even owned by Microsoft. They then lay people off or potentially shut down because the funding disappears overnight. And all these people are now expected to go get jobs, and they can't talk about what they've been doing for the past year or 2 years. What this is, again, this is creating a ripple effect, a cascade of effects within the gaming, industry of talent loss. Now, the hope would be that a lot of the studios doing hirings and a lot of the studios that might start having open job opportunities and stuff, they would be understanding of why a bunch of people entering the workforce or entering the application process are like, yeah, there's 18 to 24 months of stuff I can't show you. They're probably going to be encountering that quite a bit. Javi's been saying this for years. Why would anybody want to work in AAA? If you want to make games, go ahead and make them AA and indie. Well, that's easier said than done. The funding required, the publishing dollars required. You can't just go make a game. I mean, that's like saying just go build a house. Like, yeah, that's really, really easy to say. There's 1,000 complexities and lots of money required in order for any of those things to fire and happen. This sounds like what people trying to get their PhD and publish work go through. All of it's secret. If someone beats you to your research, you basically are just at ground zero again. I don't know if necessarily think that's a similarity at all. To me, this is a very, very unique scenario where you're going to have a market flooded with people who are no longer working and trying to find jobs, and they're not allowed to talk about what they've been working on. Like, it's my hope is that a lot of the companies doing the hiring would have understanding and be like, well, I mean, we understand that a bunch of people right now are going to have gaps in their portfolio because you were working on a project for Microsoft or one of the Microsoft companies that laid people off. That would, I guess, be the hope. At the very least, if you were at id Software, you can be like, oh, what did I work on? Oh, yeah, it's right there. It's the DLC that we shipped that's getting universal praise. Or like, people are worried that something's going to happen to the Coalition after Gears of War E-Day ships. And it's like, well, at least they'll be able to point to Gears of War E-Day. Like, if your project actually ships, you can at least point to it and say, oh, yeah, that's the thing I was working on.
Which is vendors. So Microsoft, like a lot of big tech companies and even some gaming companies has people who work within the company or alongside the company full time, but they don't do it by being Microsoft employees. They do it by being employees of outside vendors. And there are a bunch of them. I won't name them all, but there are a bunch of them. Assembly is one that comes to mind. They do PR for Microsoft and stuff like that. And so these outside vendors, they are employing people full time. And Xbox announced last week, as part of Asha Sharma's memo, in one line that got unnoticed, or at least kind of undercovered, underreported. Asha Sharma, the new CEO of Xbox, announced that they're cutting 50% of vendor spend, which
Mediocre Milton says, I don't buy that you can put work experience on your resume without naming the project. I think you're just getting here late. We already spoke to that. Yes, you could put it on your resume, but in these environments, you want to have a portfolio of work that you can show, because anybody can say, I worked on 3D animation. Well, okay, what did you do? Can we see it? And it's like they won't be able to show it. That's the problem. Like, you can make all the claims in the world. Doesn't mean you're good at your job or have even a portfolio to show off. Yo, Champagne, thank you so much for jumping back in. I appreciate it.
Which is a lot of money, which is a ton of people. A lot of people who worked for Microsoft and for Xbox worked so in a vendor capacity. And
I remember people pointing this out and saying they were like, oh my gosh, a 50% vendor drop, a 50% vendor reduction is huge, right? Like that's a massive amount of potential change and shift of money. Like that's a crazy amount of money from a company of this size to cut your vendor spend in half. So this again is going to have downstream effects. Like this is and again, we're trying not to get caught in the doom and gloom and the yelling and the salt and the anger, because I obviously had my pretty strong and visceral response to this last week. I don't want to keep beating that horse, but it's like, yeah, the effects of this are going to be long lasting. This is not just what people want to hand wave as, oh, this was necessary, this is the reset that Xbox needed. This is going to have enormous effects on the industry that we won't really see. It's almost like how COVID had effects that we didn't see for a couple of years. I don't think we're going to see the effects of the Xbox layoffs for a couple of years outside of what we're seeing right now, which is just a flood of layoffs.
For Microsoft and for Xbox worked so in a vendor capacity. And to cut 50% of vendor spend essentially means you are saying, hey, we are cutting a whole bunch of jobs of people who work for vendors, and we're working alongside Xbox people, and sometimes direct reports to Xbox people are like part of Xbox teams. Like these were people who, unless like, I mean, I guess you would know because they didn't have the Xbox email address or whatever. So it might have been clear to you if you work there that they were vendors and not technically Xbox employees. But like, I don't know, if you met them out on the street, if you met them at an event or something, they would probably tell you, oh yeah, I worked for Xbox. I do Xbox PR. I do Xbox marketing. I do Xbox whatever. These people are also being impacted by these massive cuts because 50%.
Yeah, the other thing to think about, there's a couple of pieces here. Like, people are saying, Madden Mills is saying on Twitch, like, other companies will be hesitant to work with Xbox. That and, like, is this going to be a blemish on your resume? Like, you know what I mean? This is what frustrated me so much about the narrative from, like, the Defense Force people that were like, well, this is necessary and the devs didn't do a good job. And it's like, okay, so basically what that means is anybody working for Xbox is now permanently blemished because you were told to make games for Game Pass, your games didn't sell well, and now your resume has got a blemish on it. Oh, you worked over there? Oh, yeah, all those people got laid off because they stink. Like, again, I would hope that the industry understands that that's not an appropriate way to view these people. Like, and I think it is pertinent to what people are thinking about the future with respect to third party and vendors and exclusivity or any kind of deals that companies might want to broker. They're not going to want to work with Xbox right now. They're going to have to re-earn that. And that's why I'm just really not sure where this company is going to land, because I've seen other articles and other commentary about imagine working under these conditions. Imagine working on a game right now. Imagine working on Clockwork Revolution or Fable or anything else. Just what a shadow over the entire company to think at any moment you're getting walked out the door as well. Ginger says, gaming is like a massive train on the tracks. When something fails, cars that are still in motion can't stop, and thus the crash feels like it's years long as they slam into other issues. Yeah, like this is going to be a continued issue. Sometimes good players play for bad teams. Well, and again, you would hope that most companies acknowledge that, and these people are not like blackballed or like permanently marked.
Vendor spend is a significant amount of money, and so there are a lot of people in the world of Microsoft and Xbox, whether it's those fields I mentioned, I don't know what else, IT. There are a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs, who are getting their jobs cut as a result of the Xbox Bloodbath last week, that do not count as part of that 3,200, whether it's the first 1,600 or the 1,600 that's coming later. Those are vendors. They are not full-time Xbox employees. So they are just kind of part of that hidden number that is impacted here. So you have that kind of that big front-facing headline number, and then you have all of these ripple effects that I think it's important to talk about and think about and look into. 3,200 seems awful enough. I mean, that's 20% of the Xbox staff. But the actual number is
20% of the Xbox staff. So, like, I don't know if that perspective has been said out loud enough that, like, when you put this in the grand scheme of Microsoft, you can make this look incredibly tiny, which obviously the people who do Defense Force for Xbox are going to continue to do. They're going to try to minimize this. And they're going to put this up against the entire Microsoft edifice and say, oh, it's such a small number. 20% of Xbox staff, okay? And again, one of the people that was laid off, you know, sort of aired his grievances about this. Like that we were told in all the previous rounds of layoffs that was going to help. That was going to put things in the right. That was going to put things on the right path. That was going to put things in a direction of things getting better. And it's like that clearly didn't happen. So that's another question. Do we even have a guarantee that this 20% reduction of Xbox staff doesn't create the need for more layoffs in the future? Like, I personally think that they're just obfuscating studio closure. They don't want to say we're closing studios because they know what that's going to look like. I think some of these studios are literally being primed for closure, and they'll just slowly do it. They'll dissolve teams and move people around, or turn them into support studios. Like they are literally having a bunch of these studios, in my opinion, are just dead men walking. Like they're a shell of them former selves. Like you guys, I read through that thing from id Software, and I'm like, this isn't real. This isn't real. This was written as a form of defense to talk about like, oh, we're at the same size as we were when we made Doom 2016. I think a 20% reduction of Xbox staff it's just not been talked about enough because so much of the coverage is trying to make this seem less bad than it is. I mean, look how quickly the coverage went from this is terrible to, oh, it's not that bad, and they're going to be able to keep making games, and a Fallout's been greenlit, and a Doom's been greenlit. I don't know why anybody buys into that after the showcase. Like, the showcase was literally just a bunch of nonsense. The showcase was just a bunch of fake wood to prop up to make everybody think everything was fine again. It's like I wouldn't buy into any greenlit projects or assurances from the company right now.
Is much bigger, and the impacts are significantly higher than Xbox would have you believe by what they said last week. Not that they're not being clear or anything. I mean, to be fair to them, it's not like they're going to be like, and also it's going to impact these 10 co-dev studios that we've been working with. But still, there's more to the story, as there often is.
Well, and I appreciate him saying that like it's not necessarily their due diligence to be like, oh, here's all these other studios and people that we don't own or employ that are going to be affected by this. Like, I totally get that. I think the problem is, where would we be if he didn't make these videos? Where would we be if he and others with like inside info wasn't giving us the actual scoop? What would we have? I really want you to think about that. What would we have? Would we have raw, informationally driven reporting on this? Would we have actual analysis of the ramifications of what this is going to cause? Save a couple of people. Imagine they don't exist. Imagine like a Schreier doesn't exist. Like, what are we actually going to have then? Like, what would we know? how informed would we be about what's going on? That's the issue here. It's like without these videos, without this one individual person, we would be very much in the dark on a lot of this. And Microsoft would be able to play the public and get the defense and the obfuscation and the astroturfing well in place. Like I truly think that should be one of the victories of this year should be to dismantle the ability for Microsoft to astroturf. Just tear the whole thing down. Stop letting the coverage and the outlets get away with this. Like, I don't know how to do it. I really don't. But I think the whole edifice needs to be torn down because it's a freaking joke. If it wasn't for like one or two individual people who do the work, you know, Schreiers and Chris Drings and Tom Henderson's, like, if it wasn't for them, like, we would be sitting here being like, I don't know what the frick is going on. Is it 1600? Is it 3200? Is it 4800? I don't know. We'd all be in the dark. We'd have to trust what Asha says. You know what I'm saying?
It's important to think about that. One thing I wish would happen, and I think it might help some of these people out, is it feels like if you are working on a game as a co-dev studio or an external contractor or whatever else, you and that game is canceled due to some massive reorganization in a company like Xbox, it feels like you should be kind of let free of any NDAs and contracts you've signed, and you should be allowed to say that you worked on that game or say that your company worked on that game so that you can try to find new work elsewhere, because some of these co-dev companies that are trying to find new work elsewhere cannot publicly say, maybe in private conversations and BD conversations they can say it.
I get where he's coming from, but what he's advocating for is incredibly legally complicated. Because let's say that you were working as a co-dev on a project for an IP that was going to continue. Okay, so let's just imagine that you were a co-dev working on something for Halo, and that particular project gets canceled. They actually should be able to protect their intellectual property and protect that project and keep it hidden from the light of day. Like, the company should be allowed to do that. I think there is a fine line here. Like, I appreciate what Schreier brings to the table. I appreciate his insight. But, like, I think because we live in an era of the insider, we live in an era of the leak, and there's just an abundance of information, I wonder if we're getting sort of passively lulled into this idea that, like, we're entitled to that information. We are entitled to know all these things. And it's like, no, companies actually need to be able to protect their property and protect what they're working on and not let it see the light of day if, in fact, they decide to cancel it. Damage to that property, damage to that IP or that franchise is actually potentially harmful to the employees and the jobs and other people. I 100% get where he's coming from, that, like, people should be able to be freed up to say, hey, I worked on thus and so project, blah, 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 blah. I think the way that you would do this is you would allow them to either use, like, pieces and parts of the portfolio that wouldn't be identifiable, or maybe they would have to use code words or something of that effect. Like, maybe when you terminate the contract and you cancel the project, the entire time maybe there's a batch of assets being sort of curated. So, like, hey, if and when you ever leave, you can take these assets and show them to people to prove that you were working on this and to have a body of work that doesn't necessarily threaten our IP. Like, the logistics of this already sounds incredibly complicated and probably not something that any company would be willing to do. But, like, I do think we've got to tread carefully here. You don't want to start acting as if, like, we have a right to know about all these projects and all these things that people worked on. It's like, well, no, you don't. Like, they actually have to do the due diligence, and they have a right to protect their property. The games industry needs to come to an understanding about hiring practices, because if I can't talk about it, that makes it hard for me to find a job anywhere else. It's a catch-22, isn't it, Broken Earth? If you can't show your portfolio and people are just supposed to accept the fact that you can't show your portfolio. Think about how many people and how many bad actors could enter the workforce and waste company time and waste company resources by being like, oh, well, I was working on a project that's under NDA. Sorry, I can't talk about it. I did really great work with 3D animation. And the person is like barely capable of running the 3D animation software. They could come in and draw a check for 3 to 6 months, get discovered to be a buffoon, get fired, and do the same thing all over again. Go to some other company, go to get hired, say, oh yeah, I was just working on something for 3 to 6 months. It's under NDA. I can't show you my body of work. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a catch-22. Yes, I would like for, talented devs to be able to talk about the things they worked on or have something to show for it. But at the same time, like, what are you going to do? You can let every bad actor walk in the office and be like, yeah, well, I was working on something under NDA, so, and then they hire an idiot. You know what I mean? It's a problem in a lot of fields that are similar to this, not just gaming. Yeah, there's probably a copious amount of industries where, like, you just can't show what you were working on, and unfortunately, that's required to really display your talents. I'm confused. If you're applying for a job in the industry, if you say you worked on Perfect Dark, then this hiring party would already know they wouldn't be able to share anything about it. Well, but that's the thing. Then you can't display your talents. You could be like, yeah, I was working on Perfect Dark. I was a part of the lighting team. Okay. All right. Well, can you show us anything you were doing? No, I can't. Well, obviously there's trust there. You'd be like, okay, we can verify employment. You were in fact at the initiative. You were in fact there for 7 months. And just hope that they're not an absolute idiot. Like, some of it is going to come down to just, like, basic trust. You know what I mean? If you guys are watching on YouTube, do me a real quick favor and hit that like button.
Yeah, but publicly they cannot say they worked on Perfect Dark or they worked on X project with Obsidian or Y project with Arcane or whatever else. And that's really brutal. I feel for them. I feel for them all. So again, let this be a call for some empathy to what's going on over there, because I think even if you sympathize with the business decisions that went into last week's reorganization and restructuring, and even if you think that like this is pivoting Xbox to head in the right direction, it has a lot of ripple effects. It impacts a lot of people's lives, a lot of people's families. It will drive a lot of people out of the video game industry, maybe people who worked on some of the things you loved and just had no idea that they even existed, or even that those companies existed, because a lot of them have names you've never heard of. There's a company called Keywords that owns a lot of different subsidiaries and is just one of the biggest kind of co-dev houses in the world. And a lot of those studios are kind of quietly, secretly helping make some of the games that you love, and a lot of them are being impacted when things like this happen.
I think the lesson to be learned here would be, if you're working on any project or doing anything in gaming, you should be constantly trying to scrape your work, take it home, and display your talent, so you can say, hey, I was working on a project, it got canceled, it's under NDA, however, I can show you my work that I basically came home and did. Like, I scraped, so there's nothing here that's going to show you, like, what I was working on. You're not going to know the name of the game. You're not going to know what the game was. But here's my capabilities. Here's what I'm able to do. I don't know how possible that is, because that is the issue in a talent-driven industry. He's actually done, so we don't need to stare at his face, his open mouth there. So I'll put a link in chat to the original video, and you guys will be able to support it. And then we'll also put a link in the Discord description for you guys as well, if you want to watch the video or support the video. The homie launched his YouTube channel. He already has 126,000 subscribers, and his videos get like hundreds of thousands of views, because like, people are interested in these topics. People are interested in what's going on, and so Schreier's kind of bringing the goods to the table. In a talent-driven industry, it's difficult to suddenly be put into the scenario of like, hey, display your talents to me. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to do that if everything I worked on for the past 6 months or the past year is all locked under NDA? Like, you're creating almost like systemic paralysis within the industry. It's like none of these people are going to have a body of work to show you. Like, they could do a sample. Yeah, sure. But again, then that's going to require them, like I said, to like literally come home from work and keep working. Like you're almost like coming home and being like, well, what did I work on today? Or like, is there any way for me to kind of, do that on my own so that I have something to show somebody in the future if welcome back, Brap. Let's get you on the board, man. 162 on the week. Thank you, sir. If you're working in UE5 or Unity, you can make your mock-ups that aren't specific to a game to show your skills. Right, but think of everybody that was working at id Software on the Rage, on their engine. Or if you're working at any company that's got a proprietary engine, then you're probably kind of stuck. And again, the issue would be he's also just talking about co-developers that might not have even had anything that they could really show. Oh, here's what we were doing, because you were just, you were co-developing. Maybe you were building worlds or guns or rooms or something. And then you're like, well, we didn't save any of that. We weren't allowed to. It's all locked under a contract. Even if you could name the game, how would you prove your contribution? Yeah, without a portfolio, exactly. Why does the name of the game matter if the skills and the tool experience that matters? Yeah, I feel like we're kind of running in a circle, so I don't want to keep repeating this. I don't know. It's a talent-driven industry. You have to be able to display your talent. You can't just walk in a room and say, I worked on a game over there at Microsoft. I can't tell you what the game was, but I did animation. They're going to be like, we need to see what you're able to do. You can't just tell us that. So we've made this point 8 times in the last 45 seconds. We don't need to keep belaboring it. Like, sorry. We're running in a circle, boys. Like, it's a talent-driven industry. You've got to be able to show what you've been doing. Institutional knowledge is difficult to replace when you RIF employees. The amount of people sending in random work not attached to project would be insane. Yeah, the ramifications of this is significant. I mean, he also didn't really go into great detail about 50% lowering of the vendor spend, but like lowering that kind of vendor spend is going to have ramifications as well. It's kind of unavoidable. So like I said, this is where we are right now. This is where the gaming news cycle is. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't fabricate new news for us to talk about. We tried to have one day where we just went positive and the results were fun, but like we can't stay there for forever. We have to talk about what's going on. And, Schreier's perspective, I think, is helpful in seeing that, like, this is going to be a lot like other, kind of like significant events that have happened, within the gaming space. Like, we won't see the full effects of this until probably a couple of years from now, more and more. As more and more effects take place, we'll see, like, vendors that were harmed, projects that were, that they were working on, that has led to the, to the talent exodus. Fortnite's new Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn skins can only be used in modes rated for teen, for ages 13 and up. Yeah, that's that. I don't know what Fortnite's doing. I think that they've gone beyond what is acceptable in a game like that. I don't know what the heck they're doing. It's not like an adult game. It's not a mature game. I feel for these people. Honestly, game dev absolutely brutal if you aren't on the winning team. Brap says, when you institute layoffs en masse, it makes it challenging to attract top talent too. Yeah, there's going to be, there's going to be entire ripple effects for, from this that'll just ripple out, where they're going to have a hard time bringing in new talent. They're going to have a hard time getting vendors and third-party companies wanting to work with them. What did Fortnite do? So they started this with the most recent season, and I'm kind of annoyed because, like, my kids play this game. Yeah, this is just not appropriate for a non-mature game. This is just not appropriate. Like, if you want to buy your mature-rated games, your Gooner games, your half-naked games, you know what? So be it. But, like, this is completely inappropriate for a non-mature-rated game. I think we're just continuing to push against what I think is just, like, basic decency and like, I don't know, like my 10-year-old son and my 12-year-old daughter play this game. I'm not trying to be a Puritan, but like this doesn't belong in a game that's not rated mature. I'm sorry. There's just no reason for that. You know what I mean? If you want to have those games, you want to have that type of objectification and sexualized characters, keep it where it belongs. It belongs in mature rated content. I've always said this. Anytime we've talked about the kind of content that shows up on Twitch and the kind of content that shows up on YouTube, it's like it should be properly labeled and siloed so that, it's only seen by people that are of adult age. So I don't know. It's hard not to see just pure. It's hard not to see malice in that. It's like you guys are going into environments where, there are children playing and you're trying to push against what we would consider to be just like basic moral standards of what children are allowed to look at. You know what I mean? Like imagine hanging up pictures and posters like that in a school where there are kids that are like 13 and 14. You'd be like, this is completely inappropriate. What are you doing? I don't know. First Descendant, Stellar Blade, and so on. Games can have nice-looking female characters, but they make sluts out of females. I mean, that's an entirely different, like, cultural and sociological discussion. But, like, yeah, I would say that if you want to have that type of content, that is your choice. Make it, and it's properly labeled, and then it's only consumed by adults, or, obviously kids can get around it, but that's not your responsibility if you've done your due diligence. So a little pushback, go to the beach or the pool, and you see women in bikinis. Yeah, but a beach doesn't have an age rating. If I go to the beach and someone has taken their own free liberties to wear something super revealing, I have the option to like leave. I have the option to be like, well, we're going to go down the beach a ways. Like, this person's basically naked, right? This is a game that's rated T for teen. Like, there's an expectation, I think, when you do that. You're right. There's an expectation of a certain level of decorum. It would be like saying, we're going to have a teen reading club at the library, and you go in and they're reading magazines with women dressed like that. You'd be like, this isn't for teenagers. What are you doing? These are children. You know what I mean? Like, going to the beach, there is no age rating on the beach, So there's an expectation that, like, people can express their liberties and freedoms on that beach, and that I have to make a decision as a parent whether or not I stay there. Women at the beach aren't being sold to you based on their bodies. Well, and I'm also not going, if I went to, an event for teenagers and they were like, yeah, we're going to have a pool party for all your teen kids, and the hostess was standing there with everything hanging out, I'd be like, that's just not appropriate. What are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Some beaches have age rating. Well, sure, yeah. Teen's too broad of a category. 13's very different than 16. I don't necessarily think so. I think that there is 13 to 17 is that they're not adults. You know what I mean? So I just think they're not adults. So, like, we shouldn't even be pushing against that line. It's a lot of skin showing, and the Ivy skin makes sense. The argument for sexual content would be fine if it wasn't a swimsuit. T-rated games can show a lot more in general. Anyway, the skins are tame. Yeah, I just don't agree. 32 months from the OA. We all know what Epic's doing. Come on, guys. Keep on keeping on, Lono. Thank you very much. I don't think that I don't think art is benign. I think art and games and entertainment, I think they speak from a place of belief and value, whether or not they want to admit it. And I think that really is a self-report that a company would put that kind of content in a game for teens. I think that speaks volumes about the people that designed the skin, the person that approved the skin. I judged people according to that. I'm like, yeah, I think you have a very kind of twisted and disgusting view about what's appropriate to show to children. You would never do that in an environment where there's 13 and 14-year-old kids coming in to either be, you know, entertained, to like watch cartoons, or to like hang out and have a play date, or to be educated, or a book club. You would never put that kind of content in front of them. You simply wouldn't. You would be seen as a pervert if you did that. You would be seen as a pervert. Like, you can buy swimsuit edition magazines everywhere. You can buy magazines where people are in very revealing swimsuits. You wouldn't be like, this is appropriate reading for a 13-year-old. You wouldn't. If you handed that to a 13-year-old, you'd be properly labeled a pervert, and probably like something worse, honestly. Like, you'd be accused of all kinds of things. I think appropriately accused of all kinds of things. That's nasty. That's absolutely nasty. So I don't believe art is benign. I don't believe games are benign. They speak to the artist's belief and view of the world. It's an expression of their belief and view of the world. And Fortnite's establishing that they think it's okay to put stuff like that in front of teenagers. And I think it's completely inappropriate. And I would even go so far as to say that it's wrong. You know? Small pushback, Ivy doesn't always wear that. She has less revealing outfits even in the shows. This was definitely a choice. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is not just like a swimsuit. Like, the one character that they added, she was at least covered. She was like in like it was like a bikini top and really short shorts, and I was like, okay, whatever. But it's like, yeah, at least it's just a swimsuit. This is, you're going even further beyond it. And here's the thing. They always do. They always do, homies. I've been alive for 45 years. I've watched this happen time and time again. They always push that line back every single time. They will always push the line back. I think you're reading too far into it. They're just skins. No, I don't think I'm reading too far into it at all. Any view of art, whether it's video games, TV shows, or books, they are all coming from a place of belief. Now, maybe they don't view that skin as a declarative statement of belief, but it comes from a place of belief. It does. You are designing something that communicates what you think is attractive, what you think is good, what you think is beautiful. It is. It's all coming from that. You don't design these skins from a belief that they're crap, garbage, and ugly. You're literally coming from a place of like, I think this is good, I think this is valuable, and I think this is appropriate to put in front of children. Like, those are all beliefs that are baked into something like that. It's unavoidable. That's that you're a human being. There's a human being, a team of humans made that. I'm not having my 11-year-old preteen see that and start questioning if that's how she should dress. She's already in one of the most vulnerable points of her life, both mentally and emotionally. And my 8-year-old boy doesn't need to start learning how to objectify women, trying to teach him to be better than I was. That's the other thing that's crazy to me, is it's like you've got all this entire history now of, you've got people that have all sorts of problems. You have body image problems and self-esteem image problems from years and years of marketing and entertainment that has communicated that, like, women are here for decoration and they're here to be gawked at because of the way that we've communicated to the minds, the hearts and minds of young people when they're consuming a music video or an advertisement or a cartoon or a movie or whatever. All these years, and yet we still seem to stand and say, well, that doesn't really matter. It's okay for 13-year-olds to look at basically, half-naked women. Like, I just don't agree. There's also a significant difference between, like, going to the beach, someone walks by, it's an opportunity for a conversation with my kids later to be like, yeah, we don't need to stare, we don't need to be, gawking and being inappropriate with our thoughts. But that's just something you're going to see from time to time. That's not the same as, like, putting it right in front of you in a video game where you are perpetually seeing it for hours and hours and hours. It's not the same category. art definitely has its place depending on how revealing, but to encourage sexual immorality on teens is the problem. Now we know how teens' minds work. We were teens as well. Yeah, their hormones are in overdrive. They don't understand themselves. They don't understand these categories. They don't understand these things. We are there as parents and teachers and guardians and adults to help them with these categories. And it's very, very disruptive to be like, yeah, here you go. Let's reinforce this over-objectification of bodies and things like that. A main tell for the advancements of their selling point is that some things, like the feet and certain curves, are getting more detailed compared to older Fortnite models for summer. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. You should also have to then discuss that they are playing a game where the premise is shooting other players. Well, but I think there's a significant difference between a game that is where you're flying and you're flipping and you're using axes to tear buildings down, where you're entering into a fantasy world, and within that fantasy world, your actions are fantasy, right? Like, my son's not going to play Fortnite and then start trying to hit my neighbor's house with a shovel because he thinks he can tear the building down with the shovel, right? Like, I think what you're doing is you're creating equivalencies between, like, fantasy action of hitting an enemy with the sword or shooting someone with the gun or tearing a house down with an axe. Those are actions, and this is portrayal. So, like, taking women and portraying them in this way is a form of communication, right? We are dialectical beings. We communicate through dialogue. We communicate through our words, but we also communicate through images. And you can communicate a lot by portraying women in this way. It's not an action. Like, they're not going into the game and, like, having somebody go up to these characters and, like, smack them on the rear end or, like, grab them and stuff. They're not promoting action, but they are portraying them in a way that evokes thoughts, that evokes ideas that are like, oh, this is how women are to be dressed, or like, oh, it's okay, this is hot, this is spicy, this is exciting, whatever. The actual imagery communicates something, and the actions of the game of, like, shooting a gun or shooting a grapple hook or, like, throwing down a boogie bomb, that's taking place in a total fictional environment where, like, it's not saying, hey, you should go and shoot people. That's not what the game's communicating, because the actions are all exaggerated. They're all they're fantasy. And I don't think we can equate, like, the action of Fortnite with the portrayal of characters like that. I don't think they're in the same category. Tell us you're looking at Fortnite players' feet without saying it. Is he actually saying their feet are more detailed? The male human mind is genetically designed to find the female body attractive, and revealing clothing shows off said bodies. It's almost natural that boys and men will be drawn to that regardless. So the Goon Scoon is in Fortnite then. Well, for Fortnite and Roblox, I don't think they should have adult taste of women's skins in those games. Games clearly made as spaces for children. That's my issue with it, is that if you want to have that type of content, we have spaces for that. We have labels for that. Whether you're playing Stellar Blade or First Descendant, and a game like Fortnite, I argue, is not a place for that. That is a teen-rated game. You have ages 13 and up playing the game, right? I feel like the game's so harmless, I let my 10 and 12-year-olds play it, because I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, there's nothing in this that I'm concerned about. There's little dogs and little sprites running around, and it's cartoons and Spider-Man, and it's like I've always felt like it's a completely safe game for them to play. And I don't think it's like, oh, well, that Poison Ivy skin is okay for a 13-year-old but not a 12-year-old. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not acceptable for children to be looking at images like that. Again, if you went into an environment with kids age 13 to 17 and you provided that type of material to them, you would be appropriately labeled a predator and a pervert. Yeah, I mean it. If you went into an environment with 13 to 17-year-olds and you provided this to them, you allowed them to have magazines with this level of clothing, you would be appropriately labeled a predator and a pervert. That's what people would call you. You're bringing children together and you're providing them with this type of imagery. That's disgusting. That's what you would be. That's how you would be labeled. But it's in a video game, so we're just going to shrug and be like, oh, they're just Fortnite skins. It's not that big of a deal. I just don't agree. I do not agree. If you want that kind of thing, it should be in mature rated games so that it's properly labeled. And then people that, only allow their children to play teen games and e-games, they would never see it. Unless, again, their kids find loopholes, which, again, that's not on you as the developer. Like, if you properly label your content, then that's kind of the end of the discussion. It's not on you you can't police the children. You can only properly label things. If you want to bring the boom in your game, that's cool, but we don't need to be pushing the boom on little kids. Yeah, I have a problem with that. But they haven't seen that movie. I'm not sure what movie you're talking about. It certainly sends a bad message to parents and people that played Fortnite to stay away from that. Save those skins for Marvel Rivals. They've spent 10 years specifically and actively not putting this stuff in Fortnite for a reason. Well, what's Marvel Rivals rated, though? Isn't Marvel Rivals rated teen? Yeah, I have a severe problem with Marvel Rivals as well. I think it's completely unacceptable. They have a teen-rated game, and they have what I would consider to be like adult forms of it's adult content. I don't think there's anything else to call it. It's adult. It's not appropriate at all. If you took the level of skins and the level of content that was in Marvel Rivals, and you took that and it was in a magazine or a book or a graphic novel, and you did a reading club with 13-year-olds, and you put that in front of them, you would be appropriately labeled a pervert. You would. People would be like incensed. They'd be like, what are you doing? These are children. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, like, I don't know. We're asleep at the wheel on this one. We're asleep at the wheel. I'm never going to call for, like, puritanism in video games. If somebody wants to make a video game where the character is scantily clad like Stellar Blade, it's a mature game. As soon as you do that, it's a mature game. It shouldn't be labeled teen. They've been nerfing butts and boobs and covering up characters for almost the whole time Fortnite has been out. What changed? Listen. So this is kind of like it's a form of contagion. Now, this is completely unrelated, but remember when all the layoffs were happening a couple of years ago? And I think we read an article about how layoffs can function like a social contagion, where one company's doing them and then another company's like, why aren't we doing layoffs? Because they know what that can mean for their bottom line. They know what it can mean for their profit margins. Go in and trim the fat and we'll make some more money, right? So I think something similar has probably happened here. It's a form of social contagion. It's like, well, Marvel Rivals is just exploding, and look, it's teen rated, and look at what they're putting in their game, right? So the contagion would be, well, I guess we can do it too. They're making tons of money selling TNA. Well, why don't we do it? You know what I mean? In general, I feel like the line's being pushed to the point where the unpleasant thing that's going to happen is you're going to get overreach probably from, angry government, I would guess. Some nice Xbox news. What is this? Oh, well, that just means their search engine's bad hilly. You think the need for more money finally outweighed their stance? I don't. It's hard to know. It's hard to know. But the last thing you want is some snooty politician poking their nose into games and taking an issue with this type of thing. It's like, you guys are going to push the line here, and you're going to learn a pretty tough lesson. You don't start messing with kids, because that's when you're really going to invite the thunder, which is why I think, Roblox should be in a lot of trouble and a lot of hot water. You're not letting your kids play Fortnite anymore. I want to figure out if I can go in. Is there any way to go in and like hide all this stuff? I don't know if there's a way to do it. I really don't. The most recent season, when that one girl popped up, I was like, whatever. I was like, don't use that skin. I was like, I know it's in the battle pass or whatever. But I was like, don't use that skin. I forget. I don't even know who it is. It's just some blonde chick or whatever. So I don't know. I'll have to look at it, because they're definitely moving into an area where I'm like, yeah, that's not appropriate at all. That's just not. We're moving beyond like, oh, it's summertime and you can put characters in the games with swimsuits, and it's like, you're moving beyond that. With what we looked at just a moment ago. Airplane is rated for everyone, I think. I mean, there's definitely, going back to like older movies where the line was skirted fairly regularly. I would say that that's not necessarily a compelling argument, right? That's not a compelling argument. And one of the reasons it's not a compelling argument is we've gotten better about understanding, like, childhood psychology and development, and the categories that they develop, and when is the safe and appropriate time to broach certain subjects, right? Like, we've gotten better within the realm of like human psychology, childhood development, and I think we've started to realize, like, wait, we should not be letting kids watch this type of thing. It's not appropriate. It's not good for them. It's not good for their development. It can really create compulsions and disorders and all sorts of problems with them if they see things at an age where they're not supposed to. We see all sorts of weird, maladaptive, and divergent behavior in adults, and it's almost always linked back to some type of exposure to something that they shouldn't have been exposed to, whether it is levels of like, abuse or harm in that, or seeing stuff that they're not supposed to see. It can be very, very harmful. And so pushing against these lines has always raised my hackles as a dad, and as someone who I've had nephews and friends that have kids that I really care about, and I'm just like, golly, this environment is getting it's what I find interesting is it's like the line always gets pushed on. We've seen this happen with Twitch, have we not? Everybody pushes against the line. It's like, oh, we're only allowed to do that? Okay, well, we'll do this, or we'll do that, or we'll do this. And they skirt. The line just keeps getting skirted and shoved and pushed. And then eventually you're like, what in the world is going on? How is this even allowed? Right? You wake up one day and you're like, what? How did this happen? Why is this going on? I just think the same thing's going on. I think we're once again pushing against that line of what's decent and appropriate for non-adults to see, for children to see. And I think people need to start standing up and saying, this isn't right. These games should be rated mature. They should be rated mature. Stephen Totillo says, last night's scoop stemmed from a layoff notice I obtained from Maryland breaking down 379 in-state jobs cut at ZeniMax Online Studios in Bethesda. Not just ZeniMax Online Studio head and other leaders. Over 60 game testers, bilingual experts, animators, producers, food service workers. So ZeniMax Online has been hit with almost 400 people being laid off. Good thing you wasn't around for the Street Fighter 6 swimsuit pack. Well, again, my issue isn't what they're creating; it's the rating, right? Street Fighter 6 ESRB is another teen thing, right? They did a swimsuit pack in Street Fighter. Yeah, I'm sorry. I like this is this is not something that should be in a teen rated game. Again, if you remove the context of video games, okay? If you remove the context of video games, if you were doing a reading club at your church or school or library and you provided this level of material to 13, 14, and 15-year-olds, you would get in serious trouble. You would be, people would say that you're a pervert, and probably worse. They would be like, that's an attempt to groom, that's an attempt to manipulate and wear down barriers. Like I have to take training. Anytime you work with children, you have to take training on how to spot these type of people, because you'll never know, right? There are bad people in the world trying to do bad stuff, and I have to do training on how to spot this. And that is one of the first things that a bad guy will do. They will try to push against those barriers. They will try to push against boundaries. That's what that is. If you sat down and you said, hey, we're going to have a reading club, and you had graphic novels with that level of content in them, people would say, wait a minute. That's what that kind of behavior is. You're pushing against boundaries. That's gross. You shouldn't be doing that. If adults want to look at that, and adults want to read the books and watch the movies and watch TV shows, you're an adult. That's your choice. That's your choice. Coming out with a game that's rated T for teen, like Rivals or Fortnite, and having this appearance of, oh, it's superheroes, it's a cartoon, and then you slip this in later, I have a serious problem with that. I have a serious problem with that. Because you're essentially, again, you're essentially pushing against a boundary and a barrier that, like, I think most people would expect that to not show up in a game where teenagers are able to play it. I think that's a fair expectation. Just like if your kid went to a book club for 14-year-olds, he wouldn't be looking at stuff like that. I think that's a fair expectation. A dude got kicked out of Evo because he left the Chun-Li nude mod on. Let them play Concord. It's family friendly. Yeah. If it was still around, sure. If they released a Senua bikini outfit, Lona might be like, I don't see anything wrong with this, but it still would be crossing the line. No, I don't think so, because what's Senua rated? Senua's not rated T, is it? No, the Hellblade games are rated M for mature. They're bloody and gory and dark and demented. I don't care. If it's rated M, I don't care. I don't. Like, whatever. It's rated M. Fine. Look at my comment. Let's be honest. Sometimes when you connect with a character, you don't see the outfits objectively. But then someone... Oh, hang on. But then someone who doesn't have the connection to the character comes along and is like, WTF. Oh, so you're not... I don't think I would say it's crossing the line. I would say it's not artistically harmonious to have Senua walking around half naked. Like, it wouldn't make any sense to the art. It'd be weird. It's like, that's not what this is about. If she's like jiggling and bouncing around in a thong and a bikini or whatever in Hellblade, it would be odd. Oh, you mean a Fortnite Senua bikini? You're losing me in the analogy or the example. Lono, I understand what you mean, but I'm more worried about my kid and Roblox, or at least we need to include that in the convo. I believe there's two primary concerns that parents have in these digital spaces. One is a concern of contact, and one is a concern of content. I think they're both equal, brother. Like, yes, there are games like Roblox where there's a giant concern about contact from bad people, but there's a concern about content as well. I mean, if you're not concerned about that, you're asleep as a parent. You're not paying attention if you're not paying attention to content. It's like, what are we doing here? Like... What are we doing here? There's content that you should not let your kids see. If you're laissez-faire with that, and you let your kids watch and do whatever they want, that's despicable. That is not at all something that should be happening. They are in your care. They are in your care and you're responsible for them. If you let your kids watch and do whatever they want in these spaces, shame on you. Absolute shame on you. That is not at all something that I have respect for. I have severe condemnation of that. You're caring for them. I think Marvel Rivals is a different argument point because the preceding assumption is that it'll be somewhat revealing because Marvel has been that way for decades, not to say that it's right. I don't agree with that because there is an evolution of Marvel in the public's eye because of the movies. So you have the MCU and you've got the Spider-Man games and you have this, and then you had all the MCU characters showing up in Fortnite looking like cartoons. And then you come out with Marvel Rivals. And when they promoted Marvel Rivals, it was Captain America, it was Rocket Raccoon, it was Spider-Man, it was Hulk. It wasn't half-naked women. I have a serious problem with the way Marvel Rivals has been marketed and has come into being as it is now. You know what I'm saying? Lona would cast my parents into hell despite them being amazing parents. I wouldn't cast them into hell. I would metaphorically shake them and wake them up and say, you should not be letting children watch whatever they want. That is reckless. That is absolutely reckless. That's negligence. That is. If your parents did that and you turned out okay, you better be very thankful. There's a lot of people that are not so lucky that in their formative years they saw and experienced things that really harmed them, and it's going to follow them for the rest of their lives. It does things to your brain chemistry. It does things to your view of reality and others and self. Like, it's all shaped during these years. I don't think people realize, like, we're talking about long-lasting ramifications. We're not talking about, like, oh, I got jump scared in a video game and now I'm scared to go into dark rooms. Like, we're talking about actual formative impact. You know? We're very mature in the cartoons, too. I'm just saying, within the culture, Marvel has not been viewed that way in a very, very long time. Marvel, with the movies, the MCU, those movies spanned, well over a decade. Okay? Well over a decade. And within that span of time, it was viewed as something where you were not going to go and see a Marvel movie and you were going to have to worry about, like, Scarlet Witch or Black Widow running around half naked. It was not a concern. I'm getting ready to go through the Star Wars movies with my kids, Lord of the Rings, and the Marvel movies. That's not a concern that I have. I'm not like, oh, we're going to put on, the worst one is probably Iron Man 1, and after that they move completely away from it. You know what I mean? Like, they do a little bit with Black Widow in the first Iron Man, and from that point on, it's not really a thing in the movies. It's very brief, and it's like her getting it out of the boxing ring, and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like, but it's very minimal, right? You're not concerned about Leia in Return of the Jedi. Shut up. Oh, Return of the Jedi. I thought you were talking about The Last Jedi, because you guys always try to bait me with The Last Jedi. Yeah, that one's a bit on the, hey, listen, guys, this is like when we're at the beach. You have to have a conversation about that because they're young and they're going to be like, wait, I don't understand why she dressed like that. Gank says, stop projecting your reality and your world onto others. Defending and minimizing sexualized content in media intended for kids is a yikes. Right, like, if you watch that type of thing, you experience that type of thing in your most formative years, and you turned out okay, you should be very thankful, because a lot of people are, again, they're just not that lucky when they get exposed to explicit content or violent content at a young age. It is very damaging, and it has long-reaching ramifications. One of the first pieces of advertising for Rivals, it's not over the top, but it's there, especially when they showed Galactica in the original trailer. I don't remember ever seeing that, Dirge. I'm not going to say that they had the advertising completely sanitized. Like, that certainly is like cliche comic book. She's hourglass and buxom. I just remember seeing Rocket Raccoon, Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Spider-Man. Like, that's what I remember seeing. What they're putting in the game now is even well beyond that picture right there, Dirge. Like, that would be considered tame now in Marvel Rivals. Like, here, I'll just show you guys the image he put in. Like, I would argue this is tame. Like, what they're putting in the game now, this is pretty tame. This is like, okay, yeah, you know, it's tight, it's form-fitting. She's buxom, and she's got the classic hourglass shape that you're accustomed to in old, you know, the classic comics especially. But that's tame. You know what I'm saying? The stuff I see now makes you blush. You're like, oh my gosh, like, why is that? What's going on? The same people okay with wearing next to nothing while shooting a gun at a 9-year-old are the same ones using the bikini skins of Persona? That sentence doesn't make any sense to me. This is what the average person saw first. Yeah, like, most of the advertisement was this. Like, it was them running from the side. I remember there was the one where, like, Cap was in the front, and I think there was one where, like, maybe Hulk was in the front. I can't remember. Discord's being weird. There we go. Like, most of the advertisements looked like this. And, like, I don't get the impression at all from this. I remember thinking, if my son sees this game, he's going to want to play it. Because I remember he liked Overwatch for a little bit. He would just run around and shoot people. He didn't really know what was going on. But I was like, if he sees Rocket Raccoon, he's going to want to play Marvel Rivals. Not in a million years would I let that game be on my televisions in my house now. It is so much far beyond just like, oh, there's some, you know, attractive characters in the game. It's like, no, that's adult content, boys. Like that's adult content. I mean, you need to call it what it is. It was like when I took issue with that stuff showing up on Twitch. It's like, it's a 13 age-rated website. This stuff should be siloed and hidden from children. This is not appropriate for children to see, you know. Psylocke and X-Men Children of Adam, an arcade game from the 90s. Yeah, I mean, if you can go back and find examples of games that kind of push the envelope, that's not what I'm arguing. I think we have a lot more of an understanding now, and we have standards, we have ESRB ratings, we have what we know what we would label as appropriate or not appropriate, and I just think if we're gonna get upset about some of the stuff that was happening in the libraries the last couple of years, then I think we should be just as upset if you've got games age rated for teens that has within it what I would argue is adult content. I think that's a completely fair thing to push back on. Guys, by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure and hit the like button. If you want to talk in chat, I'm running members only and sub only on both the platforms today. I may do that going forward. I feel like a lot of the bait and disruption lately has just come from new accounts and non-membered accounts, and I just don't feel like even seeing it or listening to it. So if you want to talk, I'm just going to protect this space because it's becoming a bit of a nuisance. And so if you want to talk, you got to become a member. It's $5 a month. You get into Discord, and then for the whole month you're covered. Like, it's not even that big of a barrier that I'm putting up. I'm not making you like sub and wait 6 months or something. I wouldn't let my kid play a game that has subjective half nudity at all whatsoever, because that's actually really weird. What about Felicia and Morgan? I don't know what that is. I get it, we're in a different world, and yes, there are two sides for sure. I just think we have a better understanding of childhood development and psychology. I just think we have a better understanding of what that does. I think we were very, very brazen back in the day, and we wondered why a bunch of dudes grew up and they're all maladjusted. They're all obsessed with corn. They're all obsessed with that. Like, they're all obsessed with it. They're trapped in it. There's massive, rampant addictions left and right. Dudes completely captured by all of that. And I'm here to tell you, it is a downstream effect of what we were doing 20 years ago when we acted like this was no big deal. We acted like it was no big deal. You know, you kids watching MTV and music videos and advertisements and movies and TV shows where this was just all normalized. And then they grow into maladjusted adult men that don't have the sense that the Lord gave a goose, and they're out here acting crazy, right? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I wasn't one of those guys that just thought it was totally okay to be in spaces and making remarks and jokes and comments. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in that era. I'm 45. Like, I graduated high school in 2000, and I grew up watching all this stuff that made me think that's totally fine and normal. What's everybody's problem? Like, ha ha, he, dee. This is just how we joke, or what have you. I don't think people understand the downstream effect of what that can do to people, and what we see the evidence of it right now. You see it left and right. So, yeah, I don't know. If your game's rated teen, I don't think that stuff should be in it. You know, Lona doesn't play fighting games. I'm not sure if you're saying that to somebody in chat or just saying it to say it. We have hard data now that says pretty definitively that it's not good for little people's brains to be exposed to that stuff. We've known for nearly for certain now. Yeah. Felicia and Morgan are from the game and show Dark Stalkers. Yeah, I don't know why you're bringing it up. Is it like something that's intended for kids and is it out of pocket or something? Oh, I know who these characters are. I see them all the time. Yeah, this is not appropriate for children to see. I'm 45 and I look at these images and I'm sometimes like, yeah, I don't even know if I should be looking at this. Like, not even based on my own beliefs. Like, there's layers here, right? Like, there's my own personal convictions and beliefs and my own morality and my own moral compass. Before I even get to that layer, I'm just like, I'm a 45-year-old dude. Should I even be looking at this? Like, what the frick am I looking at here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think I just think we've really eroded a lot of just like basic, like some instinctive level alarm bells that should go off on certain things. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like the adage where we had a friend of ours recently who we were kind of trying to help navigate, like, you know, being an adult and having somebody that might be interested in you. Like, how do you even navigate that in these days? It's like really difficult, okay? Everybody's super guarded. And they wanted to send text messages to this person. And we kept saying, don't do it. Don't text. It's way too easy to text, and it's way too easy for it to be misconstrued. But like the digitization of our existence makes it very easy for you to do things and not think about the ramifications. So sending a text message to somebody, you know, it's like there's no weight. There's not as much weight as if you're sitting there right there in front of them. Think about this in the realm of when you argue with somebody in a text message. It's a lot easier for you to say things and to be really cruel and unkind. Why? Well, because you're in text. I think in a similar way, the digitization of the way that we consume media and the way that we consume content, it can be very easy for you to be like, well, this is totally fine. Like, what's the big deal? But it's like you're not thinking about that it has an impact. It's like it's not benign. Like, looking at this stuff, consuming this stuff is not a benign exchange. It's not a benign thing. It isn't. And that's you as an adult having to assess, what am I going to put into my brain? What am I going to consume and look at? That's you making your own judgment and your own choices. A 14-year-old is in their 13 to 17 are incredibly formative years. They largely define who and how they are going to exist for the rest of their life. And being like, yeah, it's totally fine for them to be, you know, consuming content that looks like this. And to be like hours upon hours upon hours of being desensitized to this and thinking that this is normal and okay. And like, you understand what I'm saying? Like we're not. It's like, I don't know. It's like the world's upside down. That's even in a teen rated game. Like the whole world's upside down. It's like the only reason they're getting away with it is because it's popular. They shouldn't be getting away with it. That game should 100% be re-rated as mature. 100% should be. This just dropped on my For You page on Twitter. This is a teen-rated game. Ain't no way I'm letting my kids play this. Yeah. It doesn't even look good. Yeah, it's not even really a flattering shape or angle. It looks kind of silly. I'm looking at the gunplay. Excellent joke. You're not that much more mature from 17 to 18. Right. I'm not going to sit here and argue that a magical light switch goes off on your 18th birthday where it's okay for you to suddenly be like, all right, here we go. I'm going to spend the next 8 weeks just consuming all of the X-rated content I can because now I'm 18, right? Right, I'm not saying like a magical light switch goes off, but at the same time is if we don't have these categories and these barriers at all, you end up with this. You end up with Fortnite and Marvel Rivals now, and as we looked at the Street Fighter stuff, teen-rated games with adult content in them, and everybody's just like, I don't know. Also, it's like I don't get what we're doing. I really don't. I haven't really talked about this a lot. Like I'm not going to suddenly make this my life's mission and my hobby horse, but I don't know. Seeing it in Fortnite really raises my hackles even more because it's like this game's been out for a long, long time and is 100% marketed to children. It is geared to children. Fortnite officially responds to the Poison Ivy to the Fortnite censorship claim. What's censorship? You might have seen the viral Fortnite post making the rounds after an ad showed Poison Ivy with a little less cleavage on display. People were saying it's been censored. The underboob lasted one day. Ella Lamau, I can't. As a straight woman, I wanted the underboob, another replied. Over 2,000 upvotes later, and with countless posts across social media echoing the same frustration, the video was deleted. Initially, people assumed it was due to the backlash. Don't worry, Poison Ivy hasn't been censored. Fortnite literally posted this and then said, featuring Sunflower Ivy's correct fit, wink. Yeah, I'm here to tell you, like, this is not. Oh wait, what's this doing? Oh, it's because the image is contained within Twitter. The sprites are certainly cool. Yeah, this shouldn't be in a teen-rated game. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, in this too, you're still signaling. You are 100% signaling sexual energy here. If you tell me that you're not, then you're a liar. I don't believe you. Even Catwoman's outfit. This looks like something from a Victoria's Secret catalog or like a burlesque show or something. This is 100% signaling sexual energy and imagery. That does not belong in a teen-rated game at all. This is we are 100% eroding basic decency and saying that a game rated for 13-year-olds can have this in it. You're out of your dadgum head. Start a reading club in a library, church, or school and have graphic novels with this level of art in it, and you would be labeled exactly what you are. That you're a pervert, and that's gross. You shouldn't be exposing children to that. Not at all. Try it in any other context and people would be incensed at what you were doing. They have a new marketing guy? Apparently they do. How come? This looks kid legit. Not. Yeah. I'm not justifying. I was answering Dirge's question. Mods and rivals are also client side, so only the person running the mod see the skin. Oh, that's a mod. I thought that was in the game. I was like, what the heck? That's why it doesn't look it. Okay, so the Jubilee thing we looked at was a mod. That's why it didn't look very good. I was like, I've seen a lot of the skins in that game, and they didn't always look that awkward. That one was, like, extra awkward. YouTube has clarified their inauthentic content policy primarily to address AI slop. generic, repetitive, and template-based content, off-putting, distressing, and emotionally manipulative content, AI personas discussing sensitive topics like health and finance. What the heck are people doing on this platform? TY for clarifying. Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize that. Somebody put it in the Discord and I just pulled it up. I mean, honestly, the reason that tricked me is because that's the degree to which that stuff looks like that in that game. I mean, there are some, I mean, some of the stuff that's come out lately, you know what I mean? Like I said, start a reading club for 13, 14, 15-year-old kiddos, 16, and show up with graphic novels that look like this. Just, see what people think. See what people think. They would be like, what are you doing? That nobody would be okay with that. They wouldn't. They'd be like, that's gross that you're doing that. Let a teacher in school do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. It's absurd. To be honest, the real skins are much better. Look at Hella or any of the other bikini skins, Psylocke. The mods look even crazier. Yeah, I mean, the one I just pulled up's not a mod. That's straight out of the marketing. Yeah. Before Rivals, there was Overwatch on Rule 34 and DeviantArt. Right, but the thing that was different there is you've got to go into other spaces and places to find all that. They're not putting it in the game. You know, to go from like, what was her name? The Squirrel Girl or whatever the frick her name was. To go from like when the game first came out and everybody was kind of obsessing over her because she was so thick. To go from that to like, yeah, basically everybody is a strong breeze away from being naked. Like we went from like, okay, she's thick and people are kind of obsessing over her, to a strong breeze and this character has no clothes on. Like it's not appropriate. It's a teen rated game. It just, I don't know how else to say it. I don't know what other examples I can give. You launch a game teen rated like that or Fortnite with what seems like to be certain barriers and boundaries, and then, you know, you push against what we would consider to be appropriate lines for children in entertainment. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, try to get us to 300 likes. Even with today's format and topic, I'm a little surprised. I'm not really sure. I've been having reports on the back end. If you guys are having trouble on YouTube, that could be part of what we've been dealing with this week especially. I'm not quite sure what's going on. It seems like we're dealing with problems we had about 6 months ago. So a great way to alleviate that is make sure your notification bell is still set to all. It might have gotten switched. And make sure you're in the Discord. That's a great way to ensure that you don't miss shows. I can tell on the back end when YouTube is putting the content out there sort of maybe to less folks, to less subs, and you might miss shows when that starts to happen. So if you're here right now, you can alleviate that. Make sure you're in the Discord. Make sure your notification bell has not been switched. That commonly happens, and that way you don't miss out on shows. If I'm ever not on your homepage, be sure to check your subscriber feed. I should be in there. We stream Monday through Friday, and we've just, for whatever reason, it could be the news cycle, but sometimes I feel like it's YouTube, because I had 2 different reports yesterday on the back end that there were some errors. Site-wide, there seem to be some errors going on, and that can affect your notifications. It can make them glitch out. So relevant to the video I put up last night, I do have a section of an interview that I did want to react to. So let's see here. Where did I put that? I think I put it here, and I think I have the timestamp. This is gonna be a much shorter. This is gonna be a much shorter section. Okay. And this is John Ricchio talking to KIWI TALKZ. I'll include a link below, as well as a link in the description. And then let me turn the music down one more time. And let's see what he has to say.
People love developing initially on PC and then, porting over there. So before ship, we'll get everything onto console. I think that's less fashionable now, but there was a time where that was kind of a thing where we'll make it run on PC and then we'll go, to these other platforms, and it just causes so much problems down at the end. So you're much better off starting with the constraints and then going. And sometimes every once in a while, there'll be like advanced features that you could take advantage of later, that you could decide to plan for or not. But yeah, it's always better to start with the constraints and then extend, because shrinking is a lot harder than extending.
So he's explaining why they would develop. Let me actually pause the music. I muted it, and that's going to be confusing for me later. There we go. So he's actually explaining why they go console first, then PC. Now, I did miss a super chat. I'm sorry. Duff with $5 says, when I was 8 years old, I was watching South Park and Family Guy, but now I look at my 8-year-old nephew, and I can't even imagine him watching that. Right. Because you have an instinct to protect a little bit. So he's explaining why they wouldn't go PC first to console, because they have to deal with the constraints first. So that's why they are building GTA 6 for console first and coming to PC later. He's kind of explaining the philosophy behind that. He worked on, GTA 5 and Red Dead and other games in the past. He's no longer there.
It's way harder to make your game performant than it is to just be like, oh, we've got extra room. Cool. We can de-optimize some things, or, do things, make them more shiny.
Yeah, well, that's why I've always thought that the reason why Rockstar stick to console first and then do PC later is it's easier that way, because they've got an ecosystem, they've got hardware that they know exactly what the specs are, and it's easier to optimize. Exactly right, yeah, and they can dedicate all their resources to it. I mean, a bonus is
they're always limited.
Yeah, and I mean, a bonus of that is they get people double dipping later.
Yes, yeah, and there was, I remember with like the first RDR or Red Dead Redemption, not the first RDR was Red Dead Revolver. It's like a second RDR. Everyone calls RDR2 RDR3 in my mind, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is the latest one. But Red Dead Redemption, we would talk. There was some talk. We actually got a PC build running there very early, just to see like how far would it take. And most of the time, it's not even that, we don't care about PC. It was just like, is it worth spending time getting a PC port going versus working on GTA 5? You know what I mean? Like, it's always those conversations. It's never, any like specific, anti, any platform. It's just, is it worth spending the time and effort to get something running on, Switch or, something like that, or like Wii, like, who knows? Like, and I think you have to make those calls per game, and you have to, in a lot of cases, there are legitimate hardware limitations, right? But as time has gone on, I feel like the consoles they're definitely closer, so it doesn't quite feel as bad, but like it just becomes about just if you're working.
That is interesting that he's saying something that a lot of us have kind of felt recently, that like the consoles are closer to PC. So like I actually think this is going to play a bit of a role in how fast GTA 6 comes to PC. Like, I don't think you're going to have to wait nearly as long. I still think they're going to aim for summer of next year, if not, winter of next year. I don't think you're going to wait longer than 6 months to a year for GTA 6 to come to PC. I think they know that's a move they want to make, and they don't want to drag their feet on it.
Working on that, you're not working on something else usually. And so, or you're spending money on that, you're not spending money on something else. And so that's where the business case has to be there. There has to be enough of a business reason to do some of those ports. Or the lift has to be so light that it's like, it'll be super easy to do. And it's rarely super light. There's always something that you got to do. So, but yeah, I think that's probably the case. But yeah, as far as the listeners' questions, I don't remember anything specifically that we had to do to adjust the hardware. It was always we had to adjust the game to perform better on the hardware.
Yeah, and again, I think if you think about the plans for GTA 6, I just think the scope of the game, that's where they're going to go first. They're going to go to console first. They're going to build for that, and they're going to scope the game for that. And then as they get further along in the pipeline, they're also thinking about the timing of GTA 6 online, when and how that shows up. Some of you guys have left comments on that video. If you guys want to watch my video, I will put a link to it in chat. And then we'll also put a link to KIWI's video as well. But for now, let's just go. I'll put my video in chat. If you want to go watch it and leave a comment, I actually put this up yesterday on this subject, on how like the PC myth kind of gets busted, in my opinion, by this interview, because they're, and this is literally addressed. This is literally addressed in the video. So somebody says Rockstar has billions of dollars and some still assume that's unlimited. Wow. Exactly. This is addressed in the video. But like, the idea is that you can't just throw money at a project. Like, I think there's this fundamental misunderstanding of development that, like, well, you can just throw money at a project and it'll make it more efficient, it'll make it faster, it'll make it better, what have you. And that just isn't the case. That is just not the case. And Calvin left a remark here. Says it's a fantastic year to wait. And I was saying that as well to a lot of people in the comments. Like, you can totally wait. You do not have to buy this game at launch. Like, there's nothing forcing you to buy this game like the minute that it comes out. It just isn't. Nobody is forcing you. So I would argue that if you feel like you absolutely must, buy the game at launch, then I don't know. That's your own choice. That's your own feeling. That's your own, volition. So I'm confused. How does the easier dev cycle have the most constraint? Am I hearing that wrong? I don't think he said easier. He's saying that well, it is easier. It's counterintuitive, but it is easier, because if you don't start with the constraints, you're going to face them later and it's going to slow you down. He says it's easier to expand than to shrink. And that is true. If you make a game that works really well here, case in point, like when the PlayStation games were being ported to PC, they were able to code to the metal. They get an amazing game on the PlayStation. They deal with those constraints. They deal with that environment. Whenever those games were showing up on PC, a lot of them showed up on PC and had all these extra goodies. They expanded out. They were able to add things. They were able to enhance things. And that's easier to do. That's easier to do than like going big and broad and being like, well, we're going to be on PC. We can do whatever we want. And then all of a sudden you got to start going and dealing with the console and you got to start shrinking things down. So he said that like the conventional wisdom for a while was you build for PC, then trim down. But over time they learned it's easier to deal with the constraints first and then go to PC later. Good morning, Feed. Good to see you in the chat. So I think what he's doing is he's clearly establishing like what I feel like is insight into why this belief that like this is all about double dipping and they're just trying to rip people off in this, that, and the third. It's just like, I really don't think it's that. I don't think it's that much of a causality in the room. And one of the main reasons I don't think it's a huge causality in the room is because I really don't think the number of people that double dip is significant enough for them to do this. Like, it's a pretty seismic and tectonic thing to be like, yeah, we're just going to build for console and we're going to spend, millions upon billions of dollars doing that. And somebody did order some coffee earlier, 8 bags of Frickmas to I don't want to say your government. You guys are supposed to put your username and your name starts with the G. I don't know who that was. So like it would be pretty seismic for them to be like, we're going to shift all of our priorities and all of our development around not going to PC first because there are some people that will double dip. Like, what's the number of people that you think are going to double dip? Like, how many people? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's a significant enough a number for them to make this kind of a decision. It's like, yeah, it probably benefits them, and yeah, it probably gets them more money, but I don't think that it's to the degree that people are probably making it out to be. Like, I don't think the primary motivator is like, oh yeah, we're gonna get so much extra money by having people double dipping. Like, I certainly think they're gonna get, extra sales from it, but I still don't think it's the primary reason that they do it. I just don't think so. I think that we have accepted a lot of like headcanon that's just like armchair observations about the industry, and they're not actually rooted in facts or what the developers say. It's, well, everything is greed and bad and profit is bad, so that's why they're doing it. They're bad. And it's like every company's doing the same thing. Rockstar fixed it so the community's good. Okay, so they adjusted the earn rates in GTA Online. Yeah, people were pretty ticked about it. They were like, this is just nothing but grind. So, and pertinent to the conversation, we're just going to do this last segment here with Laura Fryer, where she's talking about digital ownership and the lesson that can be learned and the warning from Rock Band.
Emma sat down.
Wait, why can't I hear her? What the heck happened? Hang on one second. Let's do this.
70-year-old grandma sat down. She had her guitar slung low, ready for family game night. And then the music stopped. I spent hundreds of dollars on Rock Band songs over the years, and now some of them were just gone. You see, my nephew was visiting. It was one of the few games we could all play together. We went to pull up one of our favorite songs, and it wouldn't load. The next few weeks, we tried to figure out how to get them back, but nothing we did worked. You see, the songs had been delisted because the music licenses had expired. My original Xbox 360, the cool one Microsoft gave all of us when we shipped, well, it had died. So I switched to my other Xbox, the special one my team gave me when I left Microsoft. Because I changed consoles, the songs weren't there. And because they were delisted, I wasn't able to download them again. Eventually, we just gave up. We gave up on our favorite family game, Grandma's only console game.
Well, and again, this is really interesting too, because the intersection of media that's licensed outside of the game is an interesting concept. And obviously, Rock Band learned the lesson before anybody else did. Now, there's questions regarding a game like Mixtape. Like, how did Mixtape get licensure that's like basically a perpetual... Like, basically, they're able to have the music in there in perpetuity. And it's like, I don't understand how they negotiated that or how they got that. But they apparently did. Still a little weird. But, because the worry would be, like, that's a game that'll get delisted in the future and you won't be able to buy it. Delisted doesn't mean you can't play it if you own it. Delisted just means you can't buy it. It's interesting that Rock Band lost licenses and affected the actual game that you owned and could no longer then play those tracks. I think that's actually even more interesting than like the game just being removed from the store.
And that moment really stuck with me. You might think my Rock Band story is just a one-off technical glitch, but it's actually the blueprint for what Sony is planning next. So when people ask me what I think about Sony's recent announcement that they're going all digital, that's all I can think about, that experience. I'm sure this is exactly how the customers who lost access to their PlayStation movie libraries felt when they heard they no longer had the rights to watch movies they paid for.
Stay here. I'll be back.
Terminator 2, one of the best movies ever, was on that list.
Sorry, Quaid. Your whole life is just a dream.
As if customers wouldn't want to rewatch it every few years or more, like I do.
We believe
Well, that wasn't the second clip wasn't Terminator.
in the model that people embrace today with PlayStation 3 and continue to demand. Just heard you there. When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They can trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever.
Now, keep in mind, we have to remember what this is contextually. This is a hammer, is a bat, is a 2x4 to the face of Xbox. They were playing a marketing game here, which is a dangerous game to play because you were reacting. Yeah, that was Total Recall. That was not Terminator. Well, the beginning was the beginning was Terminator, where he said, "I'll be back," and then the second segment was not Terminator. So, like, the context here is exactly why PlayStation should have been really careful. You know, y'all should have been careful because you guys are playing a marketing game and you were wanting to whoop up on Xbox. But what you ended up doing is you created this idea that, like, oh, this is what we can expect when we engage with the PlayStation ecosystem. And this is exactly why I think the anger from the physical guys is legitimate. I haven't said their anger is not legitimate. I've said, brigading tweets is not really productive. But I think their anger is legitimate given that this is what that was said going into the PS4 generation.
If you haven't heard, Sony Interactive announced that they will end production of physical discs for new PlayStation games starting in January of 2028. They shared data saying that 85% of full game sales are digital and that this proves customers want it. They may be correct that most gamers want the convenience of digital. But there was a data leak in 2023 that changes everything. That 85% stat included thousands of games that never had a disc version to begin with.
Which is one of the reasons why folks think, I don't want to make Laura look bad there. Can we pause it and make her look a little more flattering? We're just not going to be able to. I'm going to go full screen. I don't like making people look bad in their own videos. The interesting thing about that statistic, and I wonder if Laura's going to touch on this. I've not pre-watched this. I wonder if she's going to touch on the fact that, like, that is in and of itself an indication of a shift in the market. The fact that, like, thousands of games are releasing digital only. Like, it's already happening, and that's why I find the rage and the anger. It's like, so I guess you guys are just not buying lots of, smaller games, lesser-known games, indie games, AA games. Like, are you just never buying those games? Right? Like, I get the frustration. I get the anger. I get it. There was expectation set in the PS4 era. You got a big physical library. But have you been consistent? Have you not bought any of these games? Because there's a lot of them.
There was no choice. You had to buy a digital version. For the big games that do offer both physical and digital, physical often does really well. God of War Ragnarok was about 76% physical. Sackboy and Ratchet & Clank were up there too. The point is, when gamers have a real choice, Ratchet & Clank...
Hang on. The other thing to consider here, though, the other thing to consider here is a lot of this information is also older. So, like, as time has gone on, a lot of these numbers are going to start to shift. Like, I would be interested on the split for Yote. Like, look at Tsushima. Tsushima's 50-50. What's Yote's split now? Right? Last of Us Part 2. Well, Last of Us Part 2, a lot of those purchases, how many of those purchases were like pre-PS5 era? Returnal, again, that was the beginning of the gen. So people are buying from PlayStation or a retailer. They're buying a literal console. Miles Morales, same thing. The Demon's Souls remake, same thing. Like, these percentages could be potentially largely skewed by the fact that, like, people are literally buying a console. Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Sackboy. These are all games purchased within, like, they're in the proximity of the console's release, which means you're going to have a pretty high attach rate of physical at that point because people are going to the store. They're ordering from Best Buy or PlayStation Direct. So what are they going to do? They're going to add games to their order. They're going to add games to their purchase at that point of sale. So these numbers are largely, I think, impacted by that. You have to look at where the numbers are now and where they are headed. I think that's a massive piece missing. I love Nib, but it's like, Nib, these numbers, when I look at these numbers in context, so many of these games are in circumference with the launch of the console, which are probably skewing the numbers a little bit. It's like, yes, of course people were buying tons of these physical. Now, what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying that, like, nobody's buying physical. What I'm saying is, I think these numbers are starting to trade places where digital's taking over, and because that sets a trajectory, like when you're plotting out lines on a graph and you're like seeing where things are going, they're looking at this and saying, folks are moving away from physical, even though you can have examples like this where early in the gen, yes, lots of physical sales were making up greater percentages of these purchases, but we're 6 years into the gen, boys. We're 6 years into the gen. That's a long time. That is a long time.
I think we're up there too. The point is, when gamers have a real choice, they still choose the disc the majority of the time. The headline number they ran with makes digital look way more dominant than it actually is. Remember this?
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Shuhei and Adam literally demoed it like it was one of the best features.
Well, they didn't just demo this like it was one of the best features. Again, and I love Laura, but like context is king here. They did this in direct response to Xbox's bumbled marketing. Xbox came out, tripped on themselves, stepped on a rake, and punched themselves in the face. Like, they just completely bumbled this period of time, and PlayStation absolutely took advantage. This video is a meme. It's a joke. They're taking the piss here. Like, I do not think they're saying, like, oh, this is one of the best features. They're taking the piss, boys. Like, they absolutely are. They, like, look at Shuei's face. Like, come on, dude. They are they're 100% doing a bit of a bit here. And again, this legitimizes people's frustrations because PlayStation 4 really, cemented this idea, and people built libraries, and they really cast a vision for physical. But the market has shifted so incredibly fast the last 2 years, from tariffs to a war to the price of raw materials to the decreasing demand to the Blu-ray players, the pieces, the parts, the lasers, all of it. Like it's a shifting. The sands are shifting. The sands are shifting here, guys. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Try to get us to 300 likes.
Thanks.
I miss those days. So why is it happening now? Because GTA 6 doesn't have a disc. The physical edition is just a box with a download code inside. Sony waited for Rockstar to make the first move, take the heat, and now they're going all in to make this the new normal. This direction started years ago. In 2013, Don Matrick responded to Xbox One Always Online criticism with the following.
And fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
Having every game you own on the platform be at risk of being completely destroyed when support ends, even if you have physical copies, and having a mandatory surveillance camera that could detect biometric data like your facial expressions or heart rate, and would upload that data to the publisher.
Xbox wanted an always-on connection. They wanted to stop the used game market.
Well, they also were ahead of the curve. So, like, a lot of the reasons that the architecture of that was built around always online is what they were trying to do is they were trying to be a smart TV before there was a smart TV. They wanted you to use them for all of your entertainment. So they wanted you to be totally online. They wanted everything connected. Your games, your library, whatever shows you were watching, whatever movies you were renting, they wanted it to funnel through them. At some level, Xbox was very forward thinking. They were just so ahead of the curve, they broke their own neck. Like, truth be told, I've given them credit for this time and time again. Nobody bristles at the idea of like, you have to be always online. You have to plug your television in. Like, nobody bristles at that. All of our entertainment and the way that we engage in our day-to-day with these mediums is we're just always online. We're always connected. That's just like the assumption now. This was just too early. So people bristled, and they were heavily critical of it. And the other major flaw was they were attempting to going after non-gamers. Like, they were trying to get people that weren't gamers. That was the greatest flaw of the Xbox One, is that they prioritize things that gamers didn't prioritize, and so the device wasn't just more expensive, it also just wasn't targeting the desires and the value hierarchy of the gamer. It was going after new consumers. It's exactly why Xbox tripped on themselves this gen as well. They were prioritizing things that gamers don't prioritize. An ocean of a library, like a Netflix library for games, a cheaper console, that was more about getting people on the console, and not necessarily, prioritizing power. They've continued to make those mistakes this gen as well, I believe.
And they've slowly moved in that direction since then. When was the last time you put a disc in and the game just worked without a big download?
Well, and again, this is something that a lot of people have bad headcanon on. The majority of games coming out, the whole game's on the disc. Okay, Does It Play is a wonderful resource that shows this. It's something like 73 or 74% of games that come to the market right now, the whole game is on the disc. Yes, there's a day one patch, but that day one patch is not required. You can play the game right off the disc, right? Yep, you're going to deal with some potential issues and bugs and snags, but, the day one patch is not required.
Look, all the major players, Sony, Microsoft, even Hollywood, they're all aligned here. Digital kills the used market, and it stops your old library from competing with new games on the next console. The Western AAA industry has been consistently struggling to produce great games, and this lack of innovation is exactly why hardware manufacturers are pushing for a digital-only future. But it's not just about controlling what you play. It's about maximizing their own margins on the box itself. You see, console companies can make the hardware significantly cheaper if they just ditch the disk drive. Think about it. At the end of the day, these consoles are often sold at a loss. Cutting that drive is one of the fastest ways for them to stop bleeding money and start turning a profit on every unit sold. So what can you actually do about it? Well, first, you can start using free and open software. I run Debian Linux, and my current favorite game is 0AD. I've donated to them, but they're not a profitable company. That could change if more people gave money to developers that are making games like this, developers that love what they do.
You're never, and I love her for this. I think she's just the sweetest thing. But I'm sorry, you're not going to get the market to do this. The market is never going to, grassroots is a thing, but even grassroots is becoming too saturated. Every day I get 2 to 3 emails about Kickstarter games that I could back. There is already an attempt to get around the traditional publishing structures and to get around the traditional need for some big company to back you, to buy you, or to pay for your game. It's I'm getting literally 2 to 3 emails a day of games that are asking to be Kickstarted. It's going to be so impossible to get the industry and the masses to get behind this type of thing, because they're just going to typically go for the big box games, the big blockbusters, and the big marketing is going to get the most eyeballs. Even when you step outside of that, you're already in a saturated market. The Kickstarter market, the try to fund the smaller games market is already overwhelmed with tons of studios. That doesn't mean we shouldn't support them. It's just that's not going to be, I don't think, a big swing here of user or consumer change.
You can support advocacy efforts like the Stop Killing Games campaign from Ross Scott. They're pushing for better consumer protections on delisted and abandoned titles. The results have been mixed so far, which is understandable. It's always a little dicey when you're dealing with big governments and big corporations.
The other issue with Stop Killing Games is I think they went for too broad. I think it's not necessarily their fault either. It's a problem that metastasized and grew and festered and became, a pretty significant issue. And their approach to it was I just think so broad. It was going to be really, really hard to get anywhere with it. The idea that the customer is not told when their game will stop working at the time of purchase. That's an expectation that you're going to get no agreeance on. No publisher or developer ever is going to be oh yeah, we can totally tell people when the game comes out that when it's going to stop working. After an undisclosed length of time, the publisher disables the game for the customer. The number of times this has happened, outside of live service games is incredibly small. And yes, that needs to be addressed. But again, this has larger effects on live service games where server infrastructure is needed for the game to work. And again, the publisher or the developer being pushed to fund the update, the change, or handing the game over to the public is just like, again, I think you're reaching super far, and you're going to really, really have a hard time getting it passed.
You can definitely vote with your wallet. Choose real physical discs when they're available. That said, for digital-only games, convenience usually wins, and it's unfortunately why the digital future feels inevitable. Look, I admit, most of my Steam library is digital too, because I trust they won't pull the games. But I worry about that, because platforms depend on good leadership. Gabe Newell will not run Steam forever, and we've seen from Xbox how fast priorities can shift when you get new leadership.
In addition, PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play.
Rock Band's warning is simple. Digital is convenient until someone else decides you've had enough. And there are some games and movies where I will never have enough.
Yeah, and this again gets to, so I'm hoping that the last part here, she gets to the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is that we don't control it. Like, it's not ours to say, like, oh, I'm going to back up all my games or save all my games, or oh, I'm going to turn on my old PlayStation 5 in 10 years. Or I'm going to turn on my PlayStation 6 and have access to all my digital library. We don't have that control. We don't have that control, and it can be taken away, digitally. And I think that's the main issue is ownership. And the title of the video is The Rock Band Warning: Why Ownership Matters. So I'm really hoping she touches on this here and maybe even gives some ideas of how we can secure it.
Physical gives you real ownership, right? And in my case, physical would have protected those irreplaceable memories.
And Blizzard killed a game they sold over 50 million copies of, which made them billions of dollars, and they kept everyone's money. So they were rewarded for that.
So do what you can. Support real physical releases when they exist. Back up what you can and vote with your wallets. Gamers have had such a huge impact on the games industry the last few years by doing that simple thing, voting with their wallets. And who knows? If enough of us do this, if enough of us support the creators that give us real ownership, maybe things will change.
Well, and I really appreciate, where her heart is there, but I'm like, we need to be fighting for actual digital ownership, because as she says in the video, there's thousands of games that come out digital only. What are you going to do? Are you just not going to support those games? So every AA game, every indie game that decides their best course of action is digital only, we shouldn't support those games. We shouldn't buy them. We should vote with our wallet. No, they should be able to enter the digital landscape and ecosystem and allow people to purchase the game and own it. The problem is they have to go through PlayStation, they have to go through Xbox or Steam, and I don't think Steam necessarily requires it. So they could obviously go through Steam and be like, no, it's yours for forever if you buy it from there. I have a physical disc of Overwatch. What will it do now? I have no idea. I mean, you could obviously install it and play the offline stuff, but right? Wasn't there offline PvE practice you could play? I think. Yeah, I think digital ownership is the true and present problem that needs to be solved. I was actually kind of hoping she was going to have some insight or some ideas on how that could happen. Because it's I think that is the big question. It's there are too many games that have already been coming out digital only. There's too many of them. So it's I want solutions. I want solutions there. I don't want, the solution is not to be well, I guess we'll just all buy, we'll all buy digital only. I'm sorry, we'll all buy physical only because that's true ownership. And it's not true ownership if over the course of the next couple of years it becomes impossible to even interact with the discs. If your drive breaks or there aren't drives available, in 10 years, what are you going to do? It's like saying that I truly own all of my cartridges for your Nintendo, but if your Nintendo stops working, those cartridges are just pieces of plastic. They're nothing. It's like there's nothing you can do with them unless, again, you've got the equipment to like emulate and back them up digitally in your own, in your own collection. Feels like she was humoring the physical crowd while having a majority of digital library. I just feel like her perspective on it was fine. Like, vote with your wallet, support the games that you feel like are doing the right things. But it's like there's too many. There's an overwhelming number of games that are digital only. There's an overwhelming number. It's like these games have come out and they have largely become the majority of what we can purchase. And if to just ignore them and to not support them or not purchase them, I just don't think that's an option. As long as it can be downloaded and not streamed, you own it. You should be able to download it again if you've got a new system to your account. If you own the cartridge, you're allowed to emulate it fully legally. Right, but listen to what we're saying. We're talking about the average consumer. The average consumer that saves all their cartridges can't do anything with those cartridges now. Okay, their Nintendo is going to stop working. They're not going to have the way to hook it up anymore. They're going to be stuck, right? You can save all your Blu-rays. You can save them all and be like, these are all mine. This is my collection. And then in 15 years, be completely screwed because you're not going to have a working console to play them, right? You're not going to have a working console to play them, so they're just going to freaking sit there. Like, I get where people are coming from, but I'm like, this is inevitable. You need to be able to, the disc to digital thing that Xbox is working on could be the beginning of you actually doing digital preservation and true digital ownership. But until you actually have that at a legal level, it's all kind of like up in the air and in limbo right now. So. Not to mention Blu-rays and CDs degrade over time. I think Blu-rays take an exceptionally long amount of time to degrade. The CDs degraded much faster. Ever heard of Hyperkin? I don't know what that is. Nintendo don't do that. I can buy a Nintendo 64 and a game and play. Huh? Like right now, if you have a bunch of regular Nintendo cartridges, you can't do anything with them if you don't have a working Nintendo, unless you have the method and the means by which you could like back up and emulate. The average consumer is not going to be able to do that. They're just not going to be able to. So, this is an inevitable place that we're heading, and if you really truly want to protect, games preservation and ownership, we need to be fighting for that and not physical, because physical is not going to last for forever. It isn't. It'll be another library of stuff that you can't interact with in 15 years. So. Yes, you can. They sell the console that plays those games. Yes, you can. That's wrong. You can still play carts. I can buy a regular Nintendo right now and play my original Nintendo cartridges. That's in the market from Nintendo. Like, I can go to Nintendo right now and I can buy a Nintendo Entertainment System that can play original Nintendo cartridges. That's in the market as an option for me. They sell tons of SNES, Sega, NES, and clone consoles. No, I'm not talking about these aftermarket things that people have created. I'm not talking about that. And 10. So right now, I'm on Nintendo.com. You're telling me I can go on here and I can buy an original Nintendo. I mean, from eBay. I sometimes feel like I go through bouts of speaking another language and people don't understand me at all. Like, it's obvious what I was saying. Like, it's obvious what I was saying, that, like, if you guys have an entire collection of, like, Nintendo cartridges from NES or SNES, there's not really a totally normal consumer level option to just go into the market and buy a regular Nintendo and buy a Super Nintendo and come home and play all my cartridges. Like, that's not really an option. Like, going to eBay and finding like a cloned thing or an aftermarket thing, that's not what I'm talking about. It's inevitable that these things fade and disappear from the market. It's exceptionally difficult right now. Like, if somebody wanted to go buy a VCR or a Coleco or an Atari, they did have to do a lot of extra legwork to even find something that would be a true solution. My sister got an NES and Super NES brand new, still in the plastic, off eBay a few years ago. Took a minute to find a tube TV for Duck Hunt, though. Yeah, because the tube TV, it has to like do the flash thing so the gun registers if you hit the target or not. Why must it be Nintendo? There is a market for physical Nintendo games and people are saying that. Oh, I was just giving the example of how much the medium has changed. Like, if you have an enormous cartridge collection from the Nintendo era, there is not a consumer level option out there from Nintendo to be like, oh, I can continue to engage with my cartridges. You've got to go to eBay. You've got to find one of these aftermarket companies that have made something that's not official. So, like, if you're wanting to have, like, perpetual engagement with those mediums, these things start to phase out. These things start to die. Like, my dad's Coleco barely works. And we found something the other day where, like, you could get, like, an aftermarket Coleco that could, like, play your Coleco games. I didn't even know that existed because you got to go looking for it. And again, the average consumer isn't doing that. Most of the companies making these aren't going to survive because slowly but surely, people aren't going to be buying them. Like, that just is naturally going to happen. It's like companies stopped making VCRs for the same reason. Like, the overarching point that I was making is that you're going to reach a point in time in the future where physical will be an option that most people don't have. Like, they're not going to go to eBay. They're not going to go to aftermarket. They're going to be like, oh, well, I guess I can't use these anymore. That's why I was saying disc to digital could be a solution. Those third-party consoles are great, though, low key, but they did do re-release of all those consoles officially. I mean, they re-released those, like, miniature ones or whatever, but they did, like, limited runs, didn't they? You can't get them anymore. The average consumer haven't kept their SNES carts from 30 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the cartridges really wore down. What wore down was, like, the metal connectors that touched the circuit board in the bottom of the cartridge. And if you opened up a Nintendo and, like, raised the connectors and then cleaned them with, like, an eraser, your games would work just fine. The whole, like, blowing in the cartridge thing actually didn't do anything. They weren't limited? Yes, they were. They stopped making them. There was a limited run. They didn't continue making them. Once they sold out, they were impossible to find, and then they were gone. I remember. They did the NES and the SNES Mini, and they sold out everywhere, and then they weren't available ever again. They were 100% a limited run. You can buy them right now. You're probably buying a used one. They're not in production anymore. Yeah, you're gonna have to go to eBay. Can you get it from Nintendo? Because I remember trying to buy one and they were gone. Accept all cookies. Play the game that started the system. They've got it here listed on the Nintendo website. I don't see a button to buy it though. Because I remember trying to get one and they were gone. And then they said they weren't making them anymore. Watch the trailer. Play the system. It looks like you're going to have to get a used one from what I'm seeing here. Amazon has them and there's 2 left in stock from Nintendo. They're $300. I swore they stopped using them. Why does it matter if it's used? Not everybody buys everything directly from Nintendo. It was my understanding that they stopped producing these. Like, I remember trying to get one, and then I remember they said, oh, they're not making them anymore. And then I couldn't find them anywhere. And if you're buying them used, that means you're not buying them from the manufacturer. It means they've stopped making them. Like, when I go to the official Nintendo website, they act as if they're still available, but there's no buy button. And then I go to, like, Amazon, and they have, like, 1 or 2. So it was my understanding that they are not producing these anymore. They're not making these. I was busy with work. What product were you talking about? The SNES Mini and the NES Mini. It was my understanding that they only made so many of them and then they stopped making them. And that if you wanted to get one, you had to go like eBay or like Amazon has people that sell them, like they buy up a bunch and then that's how you have to get them. Like right now, if I go to Walmart and I try to get the Super Nintendo Mini, it was I guess it was $100 when it came out. No, yeah, they have one right here for $100. They actually have it. I don't understand. I remember trying to get these and people said they stopped making them. They probably did only make so many. I mean, you can get a Super Nintendo one right now. Unfortunately, I don't have any of my cartridges anymore, so I wouldn't be able to use it. All of our cartridges were in a storage unit, and I think they're gone. Yeah, that was my mistake. It was my understanding that they stopped making them. They were like, because I remember we went to the store, they didn't have them. I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer, because I had a couple of like regular Nintendo cartridges that I don't think I have anywhere. I think I have like one Spider-Man game or something. And they were like, oh yeah, then that's it. They're not making them anymore. And I was like, wait, what? They're not making them anymore? That was years ago. The minis don't play the original cartridges? Wait, the minis don't play the original cartridges? So this conversation has been a complete and utter waste of time then. Can you not put the original Nintendo cartridges in them? They're like digital. I thought they were digital and then you would just download, but I thought you could put the original cartridges in them. You're right, they did stop making them. If you're seeing them on Amazon or Walmart, those are third-party sellers. That's what I'm saying. They're not making them anymore. Like, I went to Nintendo's website, and there's no buy button. The minis have the games already installed. I want the last 10 minutes of my life back. Let's go back and try this one more time. So if you have a physical collection of cartridges, you can't go into the market right now and buy something that can play those cartridges. Let's just pretend we didn't waste the last 10 minutes talking about these minis as if they were a solution to what the frick I was talking about. Jiminy Christmas. Oh my gosh. the whole point I was making is like that's literally something that's going to happen in the future. Eventually, you're going to have a really hard time finding something to play your Blu-ray video games. Just like right now, a huge collection of NES, SNES, or 64 cartridges, they become useless with time. There is not some official option in the market to be like, oh, I can go play with my cartridges. Doesn't change the fact that I bought a brand new NES Classic 2 years ago. Well, right, if you're good about going and finding like an old one, and then you got to get the adapters and stuff. Like my dad got an adapter for his Coleco, but I mean that sucker's barely working. That old port in the back of it, I mean you gotta be real gentle with it. You gotta kind of jiggle it to get it to even work. If you want brand new, no. If you want to buy a used console, yes, you can. Okay, well, I'm going to be done for the day before I start yelling. So I appreciate you guys hanging out today. We got some good reaction content. I'm going to go timestamp it all, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for another show on the Roundtable. Appreciate you guys so much. See you then.